This is a mega compilation of the most disturbing crimes that happen in various gaming communities that you can play in the background and fall asleep to, starting with crimes that happen in the Minecraft community. It was going to be a normal Monday for thousands of children in England on March 19, 2018, until multiple schools throughout the country received one particular email that caused them to evacuate the school campuses and send all of the children back to their homes. The email that the schools received went like this.
This is a message to everyone. We've sent in a student with a bomb. The bomb is set to go off in 3 hours time. If you do not send $5,000 USD to payments at valpvp.com. If you do not send the money, we will blow up the device. Our site has all the information needed. valpvp.com. If you try to call the cops, we will blow up the device on the spot. Any attempt at defusing it yourself will cause it to explode.
The other part of this message, which was written in Arabic, made it seem like an impending large-scale terrorist attack. And considering the fact that over 400 schools were sent this email, it was easy to guess the amount of panic that would be caused. In many schools, immediate plans of evacuation were implemented, and the police and other authorities started looking into the evidence. The first thing everyone jumped on was the website mentioned in the email, valpvp, which was actually a Minecraft domain that hosted servers where players could battle each other. And when their name appeared in the email, everyone was confused as to what such a site could gain from doing something like this. And the answer was nothing. So it was pretty clear that valpvp wasn't the actual culprit behind this email. And the very next day, the company itself put out a tweet denouncing the incident, saying,
"We have nothing to do with the bomb threats that were sent out to the 400 plus UK schools. We've been being harassed by a group of cyber criminals that are trying to harass us in any way possible. We're extremely sorry for anyone who had to deal with this, but just know it's fake."
And when Carlson Cal, the founder of the server, was asked who might be behind this kind of rude prank, he said,
"Every now and then we have a little rebel who will try to do something bad like this. We've had stuff like this happen before, but nothing this extreme."
Another piece of information the investigators stumbled across was a tweet by an account named Apophis Squad.
"We hope everyone in the UK enjoyed our email. Thanks to all who participated."
But now that it was proven that valpvp had nothing to do with this, the authorities were faced with the challenge of finding out the real identity of the individuals behind this Apophis Squad. And so the UK National Crime Agency paired up with the Federal Bureau of Investigation to actually look into these crimes. And after analyzing other tweets from that account, officials found out that whoever was behind the account took immense pleasure in performing DDoS, or distributed denial of service attacks. These were cyber attacks in which a hacker floods a website with an immense number of commands so that it fails to perform what it should. And Apophis Squad was performing such things regularly. But the most important tip regarding who might be behind this account came from Proton Mail, the mail service that the perpetrators actually used to send those bomb threats. Employees of Proton Mail took a few months to figure out who was the owner of the actual email account, and then sent the name to the UK police in August of 2018. The suspect was George Duke Cohen, a 19-year-old computer student. But even after getting this crucial information, the National Crime Agency didn't immediately arrest him because they first wanted to verify it on their own. However, in this span of time, George would commit another cyber crime, this time by calling San Francisco Airport and claiming that there was a bomb planted on one of those flights. This caused the security staff to conduct a thorough search of the flight, thereby leading to considerable delays for the passengers. And of course, this too was a fake threat. This would be the last crime committed by George, as on August 31st, he would get arrested by the NCA at his home in Watford. But only after his arrest did the police realize that George was already under investigation for orchestrating similar DDoS attacks against business websites. And on top of this, he wasn't the only one behind the Apophis persona. He had a friend in the US who was also helping him. His name was Timothy Dalton Vaughn, a 20-year-old from North Carolina who was arrested later in 2019. The charges the duo faced ranged from disabling websites with DDoS attacks to threatening schools and institutions with fake bomb threats. And naturally, no jury would be willing to let them go unpunished. And so on February 8, 2019, a grand jury charged them with 11 crimes, which meant that each faced a prospect of spending more than 50 years in prison if the charges were confirmed. But in 2020, this prospect actually got changed. Timothy accepted a plea deal and as a result was sent to federal prison for only 8 years, while George was sentenced to 3 years in the UK. In George's case, you can be sure that he did something wrong, but the fault isn't very clear in the next very strange case.
К развязке. Только что обвиняемому Никите Уварову суд огласил приговор 5 лет колонии и штраф 30 тысяч рублей за прохождение обучения в целях осуществления террористической деятельности.
Minecraft is a game filled with boundless possibilities, where you can build or destroy anything. But in 2020, a few teenagers in Russia found out that sometimes even this can lead to serious consequences. It all started when the Federal Security Service of Russia, FSB, arrested 3 15-year-old boys for distributing pamphlets against the government in Kansk. These pamphlets were a part of an ongoing protest against the arrest of a political activist, Azad Miftakov. The names of the 3 arrested boys were Bogdan Andreev, Denis Mikhailenko, and Nikita Uvarov. While these 3 were detained, the police seized their smartphones as part of the investigation, and for some reason stumbled upon some Minecraft gameplay videos they made. And on the surface, this seemed like nothing significant, but for the Russian authorities, it was extremely crucial. This was because in one of these videos, the boys built a replica of the FSB building in Minecraft, which they then blew up using TFT. While it can be argued that this was just some kids playing around, the FSB took offense. They immediately linked the boys' actions to terrorism, arrested them, and put them in jail. And all of them were forced to plead guilty, except for Nikita, who refused to do so despite being forced to. Nikita's stay in jail was extended because of this. And the case would become even more complicated after it was revealed that the boys were conducting experiments with homemade explosives in their backyard. And with this newly discovered evidence, all 3 boys were found guilty of organizing a terrorist group and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But this charge would actually be dropped in 2021. Yet in the same year, all 3 would stand trial in a military court instead of a civilian one. This time, Dennis and Bogdan would be released with suspended sentences due to their guilty plea and cooperation with the officials, while Nikita, who was 16, would be sentenced to 5 years in prison. But this would actually go on to be reviewed by the Supreme Court of Russia in 2023, which actually decided to continue Nikita's punishment, so he's still in prison. But while this was happening in Russia, something far more controversial was unfolding in Florida.
It means Clark will be held in a juvenile facility and he'll get education and transition services, which will prepare him for a productive life after he serves his time. And he knows if he violates his probation, he'll face a 10-year sentence in adult prison.
In the early morning of July 31st, 2020, the quiet neighborhood of Northdale, Florida, was illuminated with the red and blue lights of multiple police patrol cars. And since this was a rare sight, people thought it was either a burglary or a domestic issue. However, in reality, the police were there to arrest an individual who hacked into one of the largest social media platforms in the world. Graham Ivan Clark was 10 when he started playing Minecraft. His parents divorced each other when he was just 7, and Minecraft allowed him to escape from the harsh reality of his family life. But over time, Minecraft slowly stopped being just a game for Graham, as he would transform it into a means to scam other people. Graham was part of a broader collective of cheaters who played in hardcore factions, a competitive Minecraft server where players engage in PvP by forming teams. And by PvP, I of course mean player versus player, a type of in-game fighting between 2 users. On this server, Graham would promise to sell rare and interesting in-game usernames to other people, but once they actually paid him, Graham would simply just block them, and this led to him being banned multiple times, but he just kept returning to the game. Now, as a result of his actions, a lot of people started confronting him openly, but even then, Graham would simply manage to find a way out. Like this one time when he was exposed while trying to find out the IP address and even opened a YouTube channel. At one point, Graham was infamous in the hardcore factions community, and he got in repeated fights with other members. There was even a time a player posted a 6-minute long diss track on Graham, and since he wasn't trusted on Minecraft anymore, Graham simply moved his attention to cryptocurrency. And so when he was around 16, Graham managed to steal around $856,000 by scamming 160 bitcoins from a Seattle-based investor, Greg Bennett. He did this by a method known as SIM swapping, in which the hacker redirects all the messages and calls from the victim to his own mobile number.
And in this particular day, they were successfully able to liquidate all of my non-Bitcoin assets. And then because I had a 100 Bitcoin limit in this specific account with Bittrex, they were able to transfer 100 Bitcoin out of Bittrex into their controlled accounts. And I was out 100 Bitcoin.
However, Graham wasn't arrested or prosecuted for this crime, mostly because he was still a minor, but also due to the fact that the authorities managed to get around 100 Bitcoins back to Greg. But while he actually had the money, Graham did what any teenager would. He bought designer stuff, watches, and showed them off on his Instagram. But not everything was going well behind the scenes. To pull off such a cryptocurrency scam, Graham teamed up with other hackers. Yet when it was time to split the money, he went back on his word. He stopped contacting them and kept all the money to himself.
Graham decided to keep all the money and he didn't split it with the other people,
which led to the hackers threatening to expose him to the authorities if he didn't actually give them the money.
So, I mean, as you know, a lot of people didn't like him because of some of the choices he made. So obviously that's going to come with some backlash. They got his family's personal info. They were just constantly harassing him. Someone sent people to Graham's house to scare him or even rob him at one point.
Well, they're planning his robbery. They wanted to have him like tortured, like a lot of dark things done to him.
But sadly, nothing came out of this, as the Secret Service actually couldn't arrest him because he was still too young, and so he managed to escape consequences this time. But in the coming months, Graham would do something so shocking that his age wouldn't stop anyone from arresting. On July 15, 2020, employees at Twitter started panicking because something unprecedented had happened. Accounts of famous people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates got hacked. The hackers posted tweets through their accounts, and the message read,
"I'm feeling generous because of COVID-19. I'll double any Bitcoin payments sent to my Bitcoin address for the next hour. Good luck and stay safe out there."
Security agents immediately went on a wild hunt to uncover the person behind these attacks, and it would later turn out that this was the work of none other than Graham, who masterminded the hack with the help of a young partner. Now, due to legal reasons, the identity of his partner wasn't revealed, but let's call him John. Graham and John conducted the whole operation through the same method he used on Greg, SIM swapping. This time, however, the victims were Twitter employees. Graham went through a huge amount of data to arrive at the phone numbers of the admins of Twitter, and once he obtained access to the admin site, Graham could sell all the rare usernames he could find. But on July 15th, 2020, word got out among aspirers that these usernames were obtained through hacking, and they thought that if the hack ever got discovered, they would be at a loss, so they actually stopped buying from Graham. At this point, Graham could have done anything he wanted, since he had access to so many accounts, but instead he decided to start a money doubling scam through these celebrity accounts. It was almost like he was asking to be arrested, but before people actually got wind of the scheme, Graham and John had already made about $118,000. For the officials, it was pretty easy to track down Graham, thanks to the multiple loopholes he kept open. For example, the fact that he immediately put bids to sell usernames he just hacked aroused immediate suspicions in keen observers, and so he was arrested and held with a $750,000 bond, and served the prospect of serving 210 years in prison, showing how serious the situation really was. But after the main trial, Graham got a plea deal, which drastically reduced the sentence to only 6 years in juvenile prison, and it's rumored that once he gets out, he still has a good amount of money to be waiting for him. But no such privilege exists for the next guy, whose crime basically involved several nations.
We have some breaking news coming in right now. A grand jury has just indicted Jack Teixeira on federal charges for allegedly leaking Pentagon secrets.
In 2022, the most important topic of discussion in the world was the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the fact that only these countries were involved didn't mean that the US government had nothing to do with it. In reality, the US sided with Ukraine and was offering support throughout the war, but no one would have thought that the most crucial and devastating aspect of the United States' role in the war would be related to Minecraft. This all started when in March 2023, some top secret documents appeared randomly in a Discord server of the YouTuber Wow Mao. The documents seemed to consist of drawings of maps and graphs related to the US action in the Russian-Ukraine war. Apart from these, there was other info regarding politics and activities in other countries like South Korea and China, and these documents might have been in circulation online previously, but they gained widespread attention only after being posted on WoW's server. Even more eyes would then fall on those documents a few days later when they were reposted on a Minecraft server named Minecraft Earthmap. From there, the documents spread like wildfire and started appearing on pro-Russian Telegram and 4chan servers. At first, some believed that the documents were probably fake, but it was around this point that it became clear that these were actual classified military documents, since very shortly after, the New York Times released a news article about this, making it a national issue. Both investigative journalists and military officials were trying to trace the actual source of these documents, and that's when they found out that originally they were posted in a separate channel on the server called Thugshaker Central by a user named OG. OG was a regular uploader in the Thugshaker server, and he openly claimed that he was working at a military facility and had no problem sending and explaining classified documents. And over the course of weeks, OG would continue to share these documents with the confidence that no one will repost them on any other server. But of course, the opposite had happened, and now that the secret was out, the FBI was on a hunt for it. Following minute details like the background in those photographs of the documents, journalists were able to trace the images and the OG account to Jack Teixeira, a 22-year-old airman in the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Jack, thanks to his job, had access to multiple top secret documents, which he decided to simply post online. And just as his identity was revealed, the FBI easily found out Jack's billing address from Discord and searched for his mother's home on April 13th, 2023. And finally, a few hours later, the military arrested Jack in a very dramatic manner. He was charged with handling classified documents and spreading them online, and then sentenced to 15 years in prison in 2023 by a federal grand jury. Until now, we only dealt with unknown figures in the Minecraft community, but in the next cases, some very famous Minecraft members will shock you with the severity of their crimes.
Sorry.
You had a lot of what?
Sea side girls.
That alcohol, I'm guessing?
Pat Julianelle began making YouTube videos in 2012. The videos he posted at the time were mainly gameplays of then famous role-playing games like RuneScape and Dragoness. Broadly, these games were categorized as massively multiplayer online role-playing games, or MMORPGs for short. So Pat named his channel Popular MMOs, since he was mainly focused on those types of games. But while his channel name remained constant, his content changed drastically. In those days, it was fashionable for practically every gaming YouTuber to at least once dabble in Minecraft, and it wouldn't take long before Pat himself hopped on the trend and started uploading Minecraft gameplay videos. Over time, the number of Minecraft videos he was uploading steadily increased, while he totally stopped playing the other game. This might have been because playing Minecraft seemed more commercially successful to him, but even after making this switch, his channel barely got any views, and by 2014, he was just getting by. But that fact changed when Pat introduced a new member to the channel, Jennifer Flack. Jen and Pat met while they were working at an animal shelter in high school, and eventually the two hit it off, and were seriously dating by the time Pat started making his Minecraft videos. As Pat started getting more views thanks to his new mod review series, where he would review Minecraft mod packages, Jen also started appearing in his videos beside him, and soon Jen actually married Pat, and their on-screen collaboration was an instant hit, as people loved watching them play Minecraft as a couple. But despite that fact, it took them quite a while to actually get 1 million subscribers. The rise to 10 million would actually be much quicker, since they achieved that by the end of 2016, and they also racked over 250 million views per month. And Jen was one of the most important reasons for this. This placed Pat at the head of the Minecraft community, and at the peak of his career. But despite that, Pat still had troubles in his relationship. On May 26, 2019, 4 years into their marriage, Pat posted a video that dealt a very heavy blow to many fans. In that video, he and Jen go over the reasons they made their decision to break up, revealing that Jen wanted kids, whereas Pat didn't. And while their decision seemed mature, a lot of the fans were heartbroken and expressed this in the comment section of that video.
I feel like my YouTube parents just got a divorce.
Even though they broke up, Pat and Jen continued making videos together, as if trying to make everything seem normal. But this obviously didn't last long, as Pat would soon introduce another woman into his life. This was Eleni, with whom he first uploaded a video with on the 19th of December 2019. Many people thought this was Pat's attempt to replace Jen, so he had to clarify in the comments that Jen will continue playing with him and that Eleni was just a friend.
Playing with another friend today. Don't worry, nobody's replacing Jen. Jen just isn't always available to record, and I would rather make more videos than this. Please be nice to her.
But people still kept reacting negatively to Eleni, sometimes even labeling her as a gold digger, and the situation got so noisy that Pat had to express his displeasure at what was happening and even got Jen to talk about Eleni herself. But over the course of the next year, Eleni and Pat would eventually begin dating, and in May of 2020, he would upload a video featuring both Eleni and Jen titled Minecraft Bed Wars with Eleni and ex-wife Jen vs me, which triggered a wave of hate towards Eleni as fans began blaming her for trying to distance Pat from Jen. The comment section clearly showed the awkwardness that was present throughout the video. The following day, Pat posted a video with Eleni talking about how she was getting undeserved hate, but the hate didn't actually subside, and Eleni and Pat continued to ignore this. Unfortunately, their relationship wasn't able to withstand the stress, and eventually the two decided to separate in a friendly manner. Yet for some reason, Eleni was angry with Pat. She took to Instagram and started commenting badly about Pat, even claiming that they were never in a relationship to begin with. Now, Pat ignored her as much as he could, but eventually he also posted a video in which he showed a lot of evidence that the two were indeed in a relationship. And when Pat confronted her with those photos and texts, she simply continued saying that they never dated. All in all, everyone seemed to favor Pat because he could show evidence for his innocence, and he of course had a lot of goodwill in the community. Even though everyone would have expected Pat to slow down and recover before going into another relationship, Pat got a new girlfriend sooner than expected, and her name was Elizabeth. He made their relationship public on May 7th, 2021, and it didn't take long for his subscribers to actually start liking this.
Pat literally is a father figure to us, and you all can't deny it. I'm so proud of him. He looks so happy, and I have a good feeling about this.
However, things would take a turn for the worst when a few days later, news broke out that Pat and Liz had been arrested for trying to injure each other when they were drunk. But because there was no proper witnesses and evidence, both of them were simply placed in jail with a bond of $2,500. But back on Twitter, people were shocked by this recent development, and multiple accusations against Pat started flying around. One such accusation was that Pat frequently hit women, and while this was a bold accusation, it didn't really gain a lot of attention until a certain person liked the tweet. This person was none other than Jen, and not surprisingly, this caused an uproar so massive that Jen had to clarify that she had actually liked the tweet by accident.
I do not use Twitter regularly. When I was messaged all about this drama, I went on to see what was being said. By accident, I liked a tweet that is now being seen in a poor manner. Pat never, in the 10 years we were together, laid a hand on me.
And while all of this was going on, Eleni would make a special entry into the drama by leaking Pat's address in a now deleted tweet. And in return, Pat didn't shy away from returning the favor. Eleni then took this even further by using his mugshot as a display picture on her YouTube channel. Although Pat's personal life was returning to normal before all of this started, the whole saga took its toll on his mind, as shown in the fight with Liz. Pat apparently had a tendency for alcoholism, and all this drama was doing was pushing him closer to the point of no return. And this is what happened on May 2nd, 2022. All the details are from the police report.
On that day, Pat got heavily drunk at a party, prompting Liz to suggest that they get back home. On the way back in the car, however, Pat started punching Liz, and then upon reaching their home, Liz locked Pat out of the house, which led him to slash the car tires with a knife in a fit of rage.
One thing led to another, and Liz came out of the house only for Pat to start chasing her with the knife. Because of this, he was arrested for possessing a dangerous weapon without the intent to kill, and was held with a bond of $25,000. And after he actually paid the bond and got out of jail, everything seemed to slowly return to normal. However, Liz again caused controversy by posting a TikTok where she accused Pat of hitting her and getting her pregnant. As usual, the internet erupted, and Pat disappeared for a while, but after some time elapsed, he made a community post clarifying things.
I want everyone to know I'm fine. I'm happily living with my girlfriend Liz. Things have been a bit crazy, as seen over social media, but that is also part of things being blown out of proportion because of having a job over social media. I'd be lying if I said things have been perfect, but we're happy and I do have good friends in spite of what has been said over the news. I have to wait on talking about everything because of the corrupt legal system where I live, but I'm fine. I live with Liz and Cloud, and we're all okay. Life can be a bit crazy sometimes, and because of that, I need to wait to talk about everything. I just want to assure everyone that we're happy, and small things can easily get blown out of proportion with social media.
But the string of arrests Pat had started didn't end here. The same year, Pat was arrested at an NFL game, where his friend Ethan ran onto the field, thereby interrupting the game. And when Ethan eventually got held up by the police, Pat was searched, and the authorities found drugs on him and arrested him too. Everyone on the internet only found this out after Pat's court video went viral. And after this, Pat said he was trying to stay sober, and also announced that he was marrying Liz. Again, people fell into an illusion that everything was going to be normal. But in 2024, Pat got arrested in a very tragic way. A woman called 911 after she noticed Pat sleeping on a footpath, and when police checked up on him, he was evidently high and disoriented. Upon searching his backpack, they found cannabis. But as they tried to handcuff him, he attempted an escape, leading to a fight. He would eventually be arrested and charged, and during the trial, the court specifically ordered him to seek help with his substance abuse. But in 2025, for the same sentence, he was found guilty of not obeying probation and was again sent to jail. And after all these hardships, Pat seemed to be doing good for his audience. And he even posted a video of him talking about how alcohol destroyed his life. In that video, he revealed that he'd been sober for 4 months and that things were looking good. And in another video, he sat with his friend Mike to discuss everything that had happened to him in recent times and went over his arrests and hardships. But while he appeared to be getting better, a community post he wrote on September 28th, 2025 would leave fans happy and sad at the same time.
I relapsed very badly. I'm going to get into treatment. I want you to know you're not alone.
And while there's still hope for Pat, there was never any to begin with in the next case.
For acting in a deliberate manner toward the victim, who was just when their interactions began.
In 2015, only a few names were very well known in the Minecraft community, and one such name was that of Team Crafted, a gaming collective that included the popular YouTuber Adam Dalbert, aka Sky Does Minecraft, who'd already amassed over 10 million subscribers. But one more relatively unknown YouTuber would also go on to become popular, but this time for the wrong reasons. This was Starlight Zhao, better known as Jin Bob. Initially, Jin posted pretty normal, unremarkable vlogs, which are unavailable now, and he would have kept posting these kinds of videos if he wasn't friends with Minecraft YouTuber Sky Does Minecraft. And seeing Adam's immense success in his field led Jin to believe he too might have a chance. And in 2013, he started his very own YouTube channel with a Minecraft gameplay video. Even though Jin was actually consistent, his channel's growth was very moderate. This was mainly due to the large number of Minecraft creators on YouTube and how Jin's content didn't have anything noteworthy. But this would all change after Adam detached himself from Team Crafted and started his own company, Sky Media. And one of the first creators to join hands with Adam was none other than Jin. This gradually resulted in 2 collaboration videos, which brought Jin to the notice of many people. Slowly, they started collaborating more and more. And since those were very successful, Jin was made an official member of Sky Media and even moved in with Adam. From that point, Jin's rise was inevitable. But behind all this, it seemed like something else was going on. As a content creator, it was natural for Jin to interact with his fans. But in some cases, it could be debated whether it was normal or not. For example, by the time Sky Media had a couple of members, one of them, Tim.tv, tweeted about Jin in 2022.
Jim used to be at the office as late as me, and I was always wondering what he was up to. I checked and he was talking to fans on Skype, which I thought was pretty weird because they were literal smaller humans. I brought this up to management and I was told to mind my own business and edit.
While these complaints were ignored, Jin continued making videos before actually leaving Sky Media in 2016 to make content independently. But this proved harder than anticipated, as Jin had to now stop relying on Sky's fame to garner views. But while his videos were just the same, his fan base was kinda dwindling because of that fact. And his videos got barely any views compared to his collaborations with Sky. And this would escalate to a point where Jin suddenly disappeared from YouTube completely in August of 2016. But this was like the calm before the storm, because in the following months, a whole new persona of this typical YouTuber would be revealed to the world. In 2015, Jin actually befriended a young fan, whom we will be calling Lisa, and he started talking to her. At that point in time, Jin was 23, and nonetheless, Lisa began helping Jin with producing videos for his channel, and their relationship grew closer. But while Lisa believed that she was getting close to a famous YouTuber, she was actually slowly falling into a trap laid by a dangerous individual. Over the course of their friendship, Jin would start asking her to send inappropriate pictures of herself, wearing all kinds of clothes, which he forced her to buy. And the really disturbing part was, Jin knew her age, and continued demanding such things. Slowly, her parents started noticing the changes in her behavior, and how she was buying clothes that weren't inappropriate for her age. They even found a chain in her bedroom that had Jin's photo in the locket, and this led to them to take a drastic step and record all of her calls when she was talking with Jin. And to their horror, they found out that Jin was asking their daughter to remove clothes for him. And on top of this, he also talked in detail about all the things he would do to her. And this was when they decided to start contacting the police. But unaware of these developments, in the background, Jin even convinces her to come with him to Florida. Now slowly the plans change, and Jin starts talking to her about his plans to permanently move her with him to Washington. And this was when the FBI got involved. They started reviewing the evidence and confirmed that Jin really was engaged in illegal stuff. And with this, they issued a subpoena, which means they could now arrest him. And so while Jin was on his way to Michigan to meet Lisa, the police ambushed him and brought him into custody. But the news only broke out when some niche anime websites published the story. And with that, Jin was put in jail, and his past friends like Adam were quick to distance themselves from him.
What happened to Jin Bob? See, I don't know. Me and Jin stopped talking ages ago. The only things I know about the entire situation is that he was arrested for some pretty
Court documents available to us show us that on August of 23rd, 2016, a grand jury found Jin Bob guilty on 4 counts. Yet Jin's defense team managed to remove 3 of those counts. And Jin, at the end, was sentenced a year later, in 2017, to 96 months, or 8 years in prison. During the trial, Jin had attempted to reduce his punishment multiple times, but it never actually worked out. Eventually, though, his pleas would be accepted, and he was released from prison in 2022. Yet he never appeared online ever again. And while Jin's crimes mostly unfolded in his YouTube career, the next YouTuber's crimes had to be dug out from the past.
I never said it was the victim! I never said it was the victim! I never once said it was the victim! And I'm sick and tired of being called a I'm tired of it all!
Brandon Dylan Asher was another friend of Sky Does Everything, who went by the name Bashaverse. But unlike Jin Bob, Brandon didn't need to ride on Sky's popularity to gain an audience. Brandon's first break came when his Minecraft series, The Legend of Hobo, went wildly popular. In this series, Brandon parodied the Lord of the Rings in the Minecraft world, and some of the comments under the videos clearly illustrate how influential the series was.
Back when I was 11, this video is like Hollywood quality for Minecraft.
Over time, Brandon started posting more and more videos of himself playing Minecraft, and his popularity actually brought him closer to other popular Minecraft creators, like I mentioned, Sky and Captain Sparkles. Even his personal life, things were looking good. Brandon accidentally met a fan named Clara Swan, with whom he quickly struck up a romantic relationship, and she was actually an adult. And he even flew her from her home state of Tennessee to his residence in Seattle in 2014. In 2015, Clara and Brandon, along with other YouTubers, started then living in the same house and started a YouTube channel called The BAM Lounge. On this channel, they mostly posted their daily activities and content like pranks and challenges. However, a can of worms was waiting to be opened. And like in the coming cases, it all started with the YouTuber Keemstar, who ran the YouTube drama channel Drama Alert. In 2015, Keem personally received a tip from an anonymous source that Brandon had committed a serious offense in his past. And as any controversial YouTuber would do, Keem immediately took up the news and broadcasted it on his Twitter. Shockingly, the crime Brandon was arrested for was due to an unlawful interaction with a younger person. This was a great blow to many of his fans, and Brandon had to respond fast to save his career. And a few days later, Brandon posted a video where he went into detail about the whole saga. Apparently, he was at his lowest mentally after being cheated on by his girlfriend at the time, and he met his friend's younger sister, who we'll be calling Lana. Lana was very young, and Brandon was 19 when they both first met, and Brandon slowly got closer to Lana because she was very supportive and helped him move on. But his relationship morphed into something else when Brandon and Lana started developing feelings for each other. And when Lana's parents noticed that something was going on, they decided to hire a private detective to see who Lana was talking to. And that's of course when they came across some inappropriate texts between Lana and Brandon. Naturally, because Lana was very young, Brandon got arrested and charged, but he would narrowly escape jail as the court would advise him to seek mental therapy instead. In the wake of this video, Brandon got immense support from his fans, who seemed willing to forgive and forget his past actions. In contrast, however, a minority of people weren't satisfied with his response, and the head of this pack, Keemstar, posted a video accusing Brandon of evading responsibility by making himself the victim. But surprisingly, the people still stood behind Brandon after this video.
I admit, Basher is at fault for his actions, but you need to stop acting like he's a monster on the loose. The event happened 10 freaking years ago, and he's got a girlfriend who he is loyal to. You think a loyal man would run after some smaller humans, with the only evidence being that he fell in love with a younger person after being cheated on?
But the harm was really done. Brandon's reputation was kind of stained now, and he couldn't handle people continuously calling him a young person lover. And so at one point, Brandon was so fed up that he decided to quit YouTube altogether and posted a goodbye video. This particular video showed that Brandon was just tired of everything, and the way he expressed his anger made this video a famous internet monument. On top of this, Basher and Keemstar started an online fight that originated from Brandon's past, but soon changed into something else entirely. To show how bad the harassment was, Basher would post a video where he went into detail about how Keem was annoying and constantly calling him out online, while also revealing that Keem had been swatting his mother and even doxed her.
Keemstar even doxed my mother. My mom is turning 60 this year, and she was swatted over and over again with people pointing guns at her face.
Now at this point, Brandon deleted his YouTube channel and disappeared from YouTube, but he would then suddenly appear on Drama Alert when Keem actually posted a video interviewing Brandon, but also behind the scenes. Even his personal life was taking a hit, as Clara would allegedly start distancing herself from Brandon's controversy. Now due to that fact, a lot of his audience started accusing Clara of being a gold digger who was only with Brandon because of what she could gain from him, but Brandon wasn't having it. He made a separate video clarifying that Clara wasn't the kind of person they painted her to be.
I want to address this. Clara is not a gold digger. She is the sweetest, most wonderful person in the universe, and she never once did anything that resembled what a gold digger would do.
And after this video, everything seemed to calm down a bit. This was when Keem released his already mentioned interview, where he showed Brandon some pictures, which made Brandon suspicious that Clara could be cheating on him with Garrett, another member of the BAM Lounge. As a result of this, Clara and Brandon started staying away from each other, while Brandon returned to Seattle. Meanwhile, Garrett posted a video on his channel, clearing the air about the accusation. At the end of the video, Brandon would also clarify that nothing had happened between Garrett and Clara.
What's going on? Like, tell me really quickly. Are we cool?
We are cool. He did not do anything with Clara.
Did not have with that woman.
No, he didn't.
And as soon as that dust settled, Clara moved back with Brandon, and the two even posted a video together. But still, Brandon's video lacked their past glory and came off more as awkward. However, the final blow would be delivered when the allegations resurfaced not long after the drama was put to rest. Only this time, Brandon didn't take it so well, and fans became especially worried after Clara put out a tweet that read,
"If I pass away in the next few weeks, you guys know who it is."
She would also post a picture alongside that showing holes in her door. And when the allegations of this kind of relationship arose, Clara and Brandon both reacted defensively, with Brandon saying that he only punched the door door because of all the allegations. Nevertheless, people knew that Brandon's mental state was deteriorating, and a few weeks later, he once again deleted his YouTube channel and completely disappeared without a trace. But then, after some time, he decided to make another comeback, this time as Toasty. Fans were happy to see Brandon recover from his past and be normal again. But unfortunately, this wouldn't last long, as Brandon got COVID-19 and passed on from this world in 2021. Now, this next YouTuber matched Brandon's popularity, but exceeded his crimes by tenfold.
When Lionmaker was hitting on this 15-year-old girl known as Paige the Panda.
December 21st, 2015 started as another regular day for the Minecraft community, but behind the scenes, a famous Minecraft YouTuber was gearing up to put out a tweet that would stun the entire fandom and forever change the way everyone viewed the game. The creator was Marcus Wilson, a 27-year-old Belgian guy who created the channel Lionmaker Studios in 2013. And just like everyone else at the time period, Marcus was leveraging the popularity of Minecraft to kickstart his career on YouTube. His videos mainly focused on Minecraft Let's Plays, which as expected helped him immensely in generating a fan base of his own, and by 2015 he had 200,000 subscribers. This community of course was mainly made up of young users, with whom Marcus interacted frequently via Skype, and this was where the problem arose. While Marcus was all cheerful and happy in his videos, it was reported that on Skype he was being too emotional and was interacting in an absolutely inappropriate manner with the young fans. It happened on June 12, 2015. Marcus was talking to a young fan named Chantel Weisman. Susie, Chantel's mother, was perfectly aware that her daughter was talking to a famous YouTuber. In fact, she was the one who gave her permission to talk to him. After Chantel asked her mother if she actually could, she thought that they would just talk normal stuff. But that night, it was something more than that. In the midst of an apparently normal conversation, Marcus, or someone who was in control of his account, would ask the young fan for inappropriate pictures. As a concerned mother, Susie immediately alerted the police. But the very next day, Marcus messaged Chantel again, this time claiming that he wasn't the one they were talking to the night before, and that he was locked up in jail for the night. This didn't sit well with Susie, who kept doubting Marcus, even though the Swedish police admitted they couldn't do anything. And sadly, Susie's fears were totally reasonable. On the same day, June 12th, Marcus contacted yet another young fan, Steven Chinks, who was very young too. Marcus and Steven were acquainted with each other, and fully aware that Steven was very young, Marcus didn't shy away from saying that he would come to his house and do stuff to Steven. And even though he was weirded out by it, Steven didn't think much of it and brushed it aside, thinking it was just friendly banter. But in reality, Marcus was serious, and this was made very clear when Marcus asked Steven to send him pictures too, claiming that he would pay him $500 if he did. Steven didn't agree to send his pictures, but not before Marcus already PayPal'd him $500. This transaction would later be brought up by a PayPal employee as evidence that Marcus had unlawful interactions with these people, but Marcus tried to escape accountability using the same excuse he gave Chantel. Here he claimed that the screenshot of the PayPal invoice was in fact Photoshop, and nothing of the sort had happened. Now the most surprising part was that people actually gave Marcus the benefit of the doubt, and he continued to make more videos and amass more subscribers. But Susie wasn't going to give up. Even though Marcus blocked Chantel from Skype and all other platforms, making it impossible for Susie to contact him, she wanted to get the truth out, and so she reached out to Keemstar. This turned out to be a turning point in the story. On September 16th, Keemstar posted a video where Susie herself narrated what happened between Lionmaker and her daughter, and the response was immediate. People started calling out Marcus left and right, while Marcus continued denying the allegations, claiming that he couldn't have done anything like that since he was in jail at the time, and since many of his fans still kind of believed him, Lionmaker kept attending fan meetups like any other creator. And this is where he met another young fan by the name of Panda the Page. While many of the specific details of their relationship were in the dark, one tweet brought everything to light. Due to the constant criticism he faced on Twitter, thanks to Drama Alert's video on him, Marcus did something extreme. He came clean. On December 21st, he put out a tweet that at first seemed very unreal.
I fooled all of you and have made plenty of money while doing it. Ed Keemstar was right all along, and I'm a pervert that should just leave this earth. Since Ed Panda the Page was her and I have had several inappropriate exchanges on Skype.
After that specific tweet, Lionmaker went completely crazy and started tweeting out things that were incredibly incriminating to himself.
I'm an offender that should just leave this earth.
And then he did something that completely ended his whole career. He posted inappropriate pictures of Panda for the whole world to see. And although Twitter quickly removed those pictures, Panda herself found them and tweeted out saying that it was her, as if not understanding what he'd just done. And then Marcus said something that made the whole situation even more disturbing.
One retweet and I'll share more. I'll share more at Panda the Page.
In the ensuing chaos, Marcus again backtracked by saying that his account got hacked that night, and he made a video to clear his name. In that video, he recited a poem, which was obviously directed at Panda, but no one was really trusting him now. And as he knew it, he disappeared from YouTube, and in real life, he was actually put in a mental institution in Belgium. Other than this fact, nothing was known, and he was considered as good as gone. But the same old story was still brewing when one Redditor uploaded Marcus's stream on the H3 Discord server.
I am putting this out as a warning that this dangerous offender is lurking in our community and cannot be trusted at all, especially those in the community who aren't of age need to be aware of this. Please be careful who you interact with in private and what you post. I love this community and have made many good friends via the Discord and Reddit, and I want it to be a safe place for everyone.
In this stream, Marcus really admitted to liking younger fans.
The first time I ever talked to her, she was 4.
I'm out. And you were 25?
No. So this is what you got to understand, is that like it wasn't intimate at all. It's just that we were doing the whole YouTube thing and I was doing my videos.
thing or?
No.
What's the whole YouTube thing?
Hold on. Wait, hold on.
And it's unknown what happened to him after this, but one thing was clear. The prospect of Marcus ever returning to YouTube has been buried for good. But far more sinister is an almost unknown case of David Bukowski. David Bukowski was 18 when he first met his victim, whom the court documents refer to as SM, but we'll be calling her Sarah. David had been an avid gamer since a young age, and he knew how to effectively deal with the ups and downs of the internet. And this made him appear like a very reliable adult to Sarah, who was very young when she first met David in some online chat room dedicated to Minecraft. At that point in time, David also ran a company called Quantum Booter, which basically sold software that can be used to perpetuate DDoS attacks like in the Vel PvP case, and which would later be taken down by the FBI. And slowly, David started doing things to make himself more important in Sarah's life. He would help her play Minecraft and also teach her about computer software. Sarah liked David too, and a close friendship started forming between the two. But they grew even closer when David had to be admitted to the hospital after he suffered a stroke. During this time, Sarah was one of the few friends who constantly asked him how he was and expressed concern. Following his recovery in 2016, David and Sarah then started their romantic relationship that same year. And David met Sarah for the first time in real life at a gaming convention, and he would go on to meet her twice in Ottawa, where she actually lived. But the relationship itself quickly turned sour, with David being controlling and very rude to Sarah. And fed up with him, Sarah quietly moved on from a relationship and started dating a co-worker of hers, whom we'll be calling Jacob. Now, even though Sarah didn't reveal this to David, he started growing suspicious of her. And when he finally found out about the relationship, he was furious. And he did what someone like him would do. He doxed Sarah. And this was made easier by the fact that during the early phase of the relationship, Sarah had blindly entrusted all of her passwords to David. And now she had to bear the consequences of this decision. But then he actually pretended like he regretted his actions and texted Sarah.
I have now become a non-abuser, and I will never return back to my old ways of hurting or demeaning people. I thank you for that. I know you lied about not being with someone because you were scared I was going to hurt you or him, but all I was searching for was the truth.
But in reality, David was far from satisfied. His quest for revenge would take him to dark depths. In the month of January 2018, multiple people known to Sarah started receiving inappropriate pictures of her in their emails, which also accused Sarah of manipulating men online and deceiving them. David also sent emails to Sarah's mother and her workplace, accusing Martha, her mom, of having affairs with other men. He even once sent a thread making it seem like it was sent by Jacob, leading to Jacob being arrested and detained by the police for 5 hours. But what was happening on the computer screen also moved into real life. In February of 2018, David met Gavin Kasdorf online. Gavin was also a very young person, and he was manipulated by David into firebombing Sarah's house, and the fire set by him damaged the building and the vehicle, but fortunately no one was actually injured. Immediately after this, David and Gavin were finally arrested and put on trial for a number of crimes. Due to the lack of proper evidence, the charges of arson and attempted murder were dropped. This was because while Gavin admitted it was David who first approached him with the plan, there wasn't proper evidence. So in 2020, David was simply sentenced to 5 years in prison on the count of criminal harassment and distribution of Sarah's images. This next individual is also serving time, but for a far more sinister crime.
In 2017, Devin Arthurs was a psychotic young killer with a head full of hate and a hair trigger.
Controversial opinions and discussions can be sprout anywhere on the internet, even in games like Minecraft, and more specifically /in/craft, a Minecraft server where members played as countries and political organizations on a map that was very similar to the real world. This was the perfect server for geopolitical enthusiasts who wanted all the drama present in the real world to be reenacted in Minecraft. And one of the most popular groups in the server was Striker Gang, and while the group was filled with people trying to escape from the real world, there was a user by the name of Wolf Devin who took his ideologies a bit too far. Devin Arthurs was living with his divorced dad, Alan, in a middle-class gated community in Florida, where he slowly began drifting towards extreme ideology. This didn't go totally unnoticed by Alan, who on multiple occasions tried to divert his son's attention from those topics. But slowly, the effect of the material Arthur was consuming was very visible in his behavior. One of his online friends recounted an incident that happened when he was on a call with Devin.
I was in a Skype call with him once, and he put his mom in a freaking chokehold, called her a fat freak who was trying to take away his computer.
Another time, Alan also came across a book Devin had ordered, which was Mein Kampf, the book and autobiography of one of the most hated men on the planet. And when confronted, Devin physically challenged Alan, leading to the police being called and him getting kicked out from his father's house. And eventually, he would also drop out of high school completely. Homeless and jobless, Devin moved in with Jeremy Himmelman, Andrew Oneshuk, and Brandon Russell in an apartment in Tampa. And all his roommates shared Devin's explosive ideologies and continued to consume far-right material together. They even had manuals and guides on how to make guns and bombs. And in one drawer, they even had a framed photograph of Timothy McVeigh, who was responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. But while his roommates continued being loyal to their ideologies, Devin faced a dilemma. He started embracing Islam more and more, and also felt a connection to the organization ISIS. For Devin, Islam started being a priority, and he started preaching the goods of jihadism, or Islamic terrorism. Naturally, he tried to rub his ideology on his roommates, but they weren't really pleased with it. And so things started to get tense, with Jeremy, Andrew, and Brandon following one ideology, and Devin preaching a completely opposite one. And this tension would finally result in a tragedy on May 19th, 2017. Devin was cleaning his AK-47 when Jeremy ridiculed Islam and joked about throwing Devin's copy of the Quran at him. But before this was actually done, loud bangs resounded across the room as Devin shot Jeremy multiple times. The rampage still didn't end, as Andrew, who was in the flat at the time, was also shot by Devin. Devin then dropped the rifle and took up a semi-automatic pistol, and with the two bodies now lying there, Devin called his dad and said,
"I love you, Dad. You won't be hearing from me again." He thinks it's a joke. My mother tells me to put the gun down immediately.
He then went to a nearby leasing office and, brandishing his gun, announced that he had killed 2 people. And this was when a woman finally called 911, which prompted the police to arrive not long after and arrest him. And when the police visited the flat, they found Brandon, who was still out until then, crying in a military uniform beside the corpses of Jeremy and Andrew. After being arrested, Devin was questioned about his motives by detectives. And in that interview, Devin reveals that his roommates were planning to unalive a lot of people by planting bombs. So he had to interrupt them to save people's lives, which of course could be a possibility, but most likely simply isn't. He would later be diagnosed with a mental illness upon evaluation by a forensic psychiatrist. And so in 2023, Devin finally pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Now let's dive into the most horrifying crimes that happen in the Pokemon community. In the summer of 2017, a young girl named Felicity posted a photo on social media while she was on vacation with her family at the Thousand Islands. The photo showed her by a pool wearing a blue bikini, and within hours after the post went up, one of the top popular Pokemon players liked the picture, and from there he would start messaging her. We will refer to him as D, as Felicity has decided to keep his identity hidden. D was 21, while Felicity was much younger, but because she had other older friends and even mutual friends in the Pokemon community, she felt comfortable talking to him. The conversation started innocently enough, from small talk to compliments about her photos. She thought nothing about their interaction until the night that changed everything. It was 95 degrees in her room, and she was sleeping without clothes because of the heat, covered by a blanket. Now she sent back photos of the dark room and continued talking to him until he asked what she was wearing, and that's when he pushed even further. She didn't even know what the phrase meant, so he had to explain it. But when she refused to send the pictures he wanted, he resorted to emotional manipulation, making her feel guilty. With the immense amount of pressure D placed on her, Felicity finally gave in, and she sent a photo with a blanket covering her. But still, D wasn't satisfied, as he wanted to see a raunchier one. Felicity knew what he wanted, but would not give in to it, even after he convinced her that he wouldn't show anyone. And the messages didn't even stop after the vacation. D would keep contacting Felicity for years with random check-ins and creepy messages, and this would continue until summer of 2015, when Felicity actually got into a relationship with another guy whom she called Dominic, and it was only then that her conversation with D drastically reduced. After finding out about her new relationship, D blocked her on his original Snapchat account and instead followed her with one of his fake accounts to keep tabs on her. Now soon afterwards, Felicity's relationship with Dominic would actually hit the rocks, and once he realized that Felicity was single again, he sent her a message on Twitter asking for them to reconnect, and Felicity then replied saying,
Sure, I don't remember when we used to talk though, but okay.
D then responded,
Really? Like, really? It was last summer, pretty much. You would talk a lot. You used to call me Bear. You were very, open. Does any of that ring a bell at all?
To which Felicity then replied saying,
No, I don't remember.
D then tried to explain further, saying,
That's crazy. I really liked you. It was before you got with that guy. Don't remember his name. Think he was black though. Crazy how much someone can impact your life. But you might not even be a blip in the other's radar. LOL, yeah, I think.
She then tried to explain saying,
I kind of remember you. Don't be upset with me. And then just not talk to me. My memory was really bad.
She tried to pretend like D didn't exist, and none of their interactions ever happened. But he simply couldn't let it go. He sent her messages on Twitter, Snapchat, Kik, and even on Facebook. And he would even share a screenshot of their previous conversation to help jog her memory, accompanied by a message that read,
This is where it all started. I was jelly. Then I was upset and sad. Then I didn't want to talk to you because my feelings would interfere because you were with someone.
He even sent her a link to Tyler, the Creator's song Too Effing Young, which was specifically about a person who was not old enough for a relationship. And according to D, he thought of her when he listened to the song. But even though Felicity kept faking ignorance, D continued to pressure her until the day she finally snapped. She also held herself accountable for what transpired with D, saying,
So I understand that half of this is my fault.
Felicity would end up holding on to that guilt until February of 2019, when she decided to take action. She created a Discord server for old friends from the community, including mutual friends of D, and it was in this server that she opened up to them about what transpired between them and how she felt about it. She also informed them to never contact her in the future to avoid bringing back memories of her conversations with D, but the trauma of the exploitation she experienced still held her down. So on March 27, 2019, she decided to expose D to the entire world. She uploaded a video to YouTube titled Finally Coming Forward, sharing her experience with the entire Pokemon YouTube community, and within hours, this video would go viral, getting the attention of the entire community, and the hashtag PokeMeToo started trending online, as the community that was supposed to be about fun and friendship was revealed to be filled with offenders who engaged in inappropriate conduct around younger people. However, D's situation was unique because of the threat he made against Felicity, which he revealed in a subsequent video on his channel. But she also had to admit that D wasn't the only person who'd hurt her.
But what I didn't mention in that video was the fact that that didn't happen once with one person. That happened with 3 people.
But of the 3 men, D was the worst of the 3 people who preyed on her in the community. And toward the end of the video, Felicity would finally reveal D's true identity, identifying him as Nathan Putnam, who's known in the Pokemon space as Decatur, a Pokemon content creator and artist who makes graphics for several famous Pokemon YouTubers. Felicity then revealed Nathan's threats in detail, saying,
He said that if I tried to speak out against him at any point, he would hurt me and my family, and he had the pictures to do it.
But the threats would no longer have a hold on her when she discovered that Nathan had betrayed her in the worst way possible. Felicity's private photos were out there, and she didn't know how many people had them. And so the Pokemon community erupted for the second time, with Keemstar also reacting to the revelations on Twitter, saying,
young people made allegations that this white man, known as Decatur, asked them for explicit pictures. He since deleted his Twitter and Instagram where the alleged misconduct took place.
What Felicity didn't know, however, was that she wasn't the first victim, and she wouldn't be the last. Another young victim called Caroline, who shared her experience on X, had her age clearly visible in her Twitter and Skype profiles. But Nathan still messaged her anyway, aggressively demanding explicit photos. She said, "I feel it's important for everyone to know the horrible things he's done to not only myself, but many others, as he is or was a part of an online community full of young people. This will continue to happen to young girls if we do not step in." Another young woman named V also came out to claim that she experienced something completely different, but equally disturbing with Nathan, who apparently lied about his age to flirt with her. She shared screenshots of their chat on X, where he said,
"I genuinely just want to cuddle something right now, and my dilemma is 1, I'm naked in the face, and 2, you live across the US, so this is..."
She responded saying,
"Oh my god, is that you flirting, my dude?"
And he said,
"No, not at all. That's really like bad for flirting. In order for me to be flirting, you have to say some You gotta say something that's just easy for me to be smooth as because I'm a train wreck." But it made sense because I was turning 18, so...
Now this made her curious about his age, but when she asked, Nathan responded saying,
"I turned 20 in less than a month."
To which she then replied,
"Oh my god, you're a baby. Also a Gemini. Wow."
V also mentioned that he was talking to her about some girl he was talking to and sent pictures of her, but she thought nothing of this at the time. Nathan said,
"She was talking about intercourse," and then was like, "Well, I'm going to bed." And I'm like, "I'm blue dabba dee ba dee da."
And V said,
"Lol, damn." She's quick to jump to that subject.
And then Nathan said,
"I mean, I feel like it's my fault because I'm bad," and I'm like, "Hey, you're cute. Let me break your ankles."
Now amidst all the chaos, Nathan never actually responded to any of these allegations, and within days of this being leaked, he decided to delete his Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube accounts, and disappeared from the community completely. And this would lead to the PAX East convention, a major Pokemon game organizer, to ban him from attending future events. And while Nathan's crimes were horrifying, this next one was even more disturbing since it happened at a Pokemon convention.
We have ourselves throwaway story saying, "I was assaulted by Judy Azzarelli."
Anyone who's been paying attention to the Pokemon community over the last decade, especially the video game championship scene, where players participate in official Pokemon game tournaments, would know that it has grown kinda toxic, with inhumane behaviors becoming increasingly more common. However, the true extent of the disturbing behavior in the fanbase would become known on September 23rd, 2025, when an anonymous account with the username useyourvoice00 posted a tweet containing a link to a Google document with the caption,
"I was taken advantage of by Judy Azzarelli,"
a popular Pokemon VGC competitor. Inside the document, the poster recounted her experience at the 2024 European International Championships with Judy. For the sake of privacy and safety, the poster had chosen not to reveal her identity, but we will refer to her as Amna. The document Amna shared was titled
"My Story,"
with the trigger warning stating that it
included sensitive topics such as verbal misdemeanor and bodily violations. If those topics are uncomfortable or harmful for you, please do not continue to read.
And she then began her revelation by first clearing the air, saying,
"After recent events, I've decided to come forward with my story. I've debated sharing my experience, but I want to protect other members in my community."
In 2023, at the North American International Championships, a major Pokemon tournament, Amna met Judy Azzarelli, a top player in the VGC world who competed in many championships and had made it all the way up to the World Championship finals. Judy and Amna immediately became friends, and it wouldn't take long for their relationship to grow into something more intimate. And for a while, the two enjoyed a fairly stable interaction, but that was until a few months into their relationship that Amna got some information about Judy that marked the beginning of the end.
In December of that year, I was informed that he'd been cheating on me, which prompted the downfall into the end of our relationship.
Now they tried to part ways in a friendly way, but the only problem was that the couple had booked accommodations to stay together at the EUIC 2024, one of the biggest Pokemon competitions in the world, before Amna actually found out about Judy's secret affair. But with their relationship falling apart, the plans to stay in the same room no longer sat well with Amna, but because she didn't want to make a huge deal out of it, she decided to keep the rooms anyway. But according to her,
"Looking back, I regret this decision, but felt it was necessary to avoid conflict. I intended to be friendly, but made an effort to avoid him to keep things uncomplicated."
And a few months later, in April 2024, it was time for Amna to travel to the competition, but the same conflict that she was trying to avoid would prove inevitable.
Saturday, April 6th, while at EUIC, the Pokemon crew and I went to the Club Fabric. I was on the dance floor when somebody grabbed me and informed me that Judy was making a scene by aggressively questioning others about my whereabouts and trying to find me. When he found me, he yelled that I needed to tell him where I was, and that it was not okay that he didn't know where I was. I was trying to de-escalate the situation and calmly told him that we're no longer together and that I didn't need to keep him informed. However, he became so aggressive that 3 community members stepped in and stayed by my side to make sure I was safe.
Now after this encounter, Amna had to return to their shared room because she didn't want to upset him more and risk another aggressive outburst. And things would get pretty quiet after that until the end of the tournament. Later on April 7th, Amna and her friends ended their evening at an arcade bar to wind down after the tournament weekend. But while they were sitting there, Amna recounted that
Judy and his group of friends showed up, and I attempted to keep my distance. However, when he saw me sitting at a table alone, he came over. But while Judy was at Amna's table, another community member approached, and she seized this opportunity to quickly end her conversation with Judy and get out of this completely. But then something strange happened. During this interaction, I was entirely distracted and not paying attention to my drink on the table in front of me. I finished the drink at my table. This is the last thing I remember from that night. I do not know how I left the bar or got back to my hotel room.
Everything that happened after Amna finished that drink had been completely wiped from her memory, but what she saw when she opened her eyes left her completely traumatized.
The next thing I remember is waking up to him actively taking advantage of me. My clothes had been removed to expose expose my body, and I was frozen. I couldn't move a single part of my body as he continued. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and he immediately jumped off of me, and all I could do was curl into a ball and act as if I was sleeping. Then everything went black again.
By the time Amna woke up the next morning, she knew that she had to leave the hotel immediately, but was scared to tell Judy. And Amna described the events that happened that morning, saying,
I was afraid that if I expressed this to him, he would become aggressive and prevent me from going. After expressing how I did not remember anything from the night before and asking what happened, he left and proceeded to send me a voice memo saying, I know this hasn't been the best of weeks and that a lot has happened, but thank you for being you.
Now, despite that traumatizing event, after that conversation, Amna and Judy went back to their regular lives. But due to the fact that she was possibly drugged, Amna's memory of that night was hazy, and that she would spend the next few days trying to piece together what happened in that room that night, she would attempt to reach out to Judy again.
Over text, I tried to get him to fill me in on the events of the evening. It became too traumatic, and I decided to block his number and his accounts on all social media. Because of this, messages from mutual friends started pouring in. I've received screenshots documenting him saying that he should have recorded our conversation the morning after, and him calling our interaction blackout intercourse.
And although Amna kept those conversations private to protect herself and continued enjoying the Pokemon community she loves, the weight of what happened followed her everywhere until she decided to expose Judy.
I feel as it is my responsibility to share this information to protect other women in this community. I am aware that this may hurt my chances of growing within the space, but this is a risk that I've made peace with. I am asking for privacy, for my safety, and I do not wish to be named. I'm incredibly grateful for the people who've been there for me.
And the moment Amna's post hit Twitter, it went viral within the Pokemon VGC community. And in a matter of hours, top players and members of the community had started coming forward. For example, Cassie, a pro Pokemon player and two-time national champion in the VGC community, also weighed in on the situation, saying,
This reached me as a rumor a few months ago, one of many. What worried me now is that the rumor also said there were more cases with other American players and prominent people from the community covering them up for a long time. We'll see if this complaint triggers a chain reaction.
And so it turned out that people within the community had already known something was going on with Judy, and they were all pretty much aware that he was a creep. And they even warned other people in the community in private, but no one specifically knew about Amna's incident until she came forward. Now, shortly after Amna's revelation, Eurorin, a thumbnail artist and fellow gamer who was also Judy's roommate, made a post on X. In this post, Eurorin said,
Everyone should read that dog. My heart goes out to the person who wrote, and I'm sorry for what they experienced. I like to keep my private life private, but being close to a public person, some aspects of that were compromised. I do want to say that I had cut off Judy from my life a while ago for separate reasons, but because of local tenant law, we are still currently living together. I don't feel comfortable fielding questions about someone no longer in my life. If you were not my friend, please stop DMing me.
And Eurorin's post would end up making the whole situation explode even more, with several other members of the community coming out to praise Amna for coming forward and recounting their own horror stories. For example, another Pokemon player, Gabrielle, shared her own experience, saying,
I've also had my own questionable experiences with Judy and experienced firsthand his anger and aggression. For anyone that believes a single shred of him asking for consent in that horrible situation, just know that he more than likely did not. I've been around Judy when he's had more drinks than he should have after an event, and he's tried pressuring me to come to a hotel with him. May 2023, Hartford Regional. He tells me he has a room to himself, Saturday nights, and asks me if I want to come cuddle him that night, and I repeatedly tell him I'm not agreeing to anything. I show up to that bar that night, not planning on drinking, and he's already plastered when I get there, and he keeps making comments about me going to his hotel with him and rubbing my leg and making me extremely uncomfortable. I found out that after that event and his trying to pursue me, that he was in a relationship while making those advances towards me. Additionally, at a Beast Coast event in September 2023, he screamed in my face, and there are many witnesses to that.
And shortly after she made that post, comments began to pour in, with one person even confirming being a witness to Judy's aggression that day.
Love you so much, girl, and all my life I never witnessed a man yell in a woman's face that aggressively before, over which bar the group should go next to. Literally, what? I'm so sorry you had to experience any of his actions.
Now, the morning after all of these accusations went public, Judy finally came out with his own response.
This isn't true. This isn't true. I'm gonna have to end stream and address this. This is a real accusation.
However, shortly after denying the allegations, Judy made a post on X that was essentially him admitting to all of his actions. Now, in the confession, Judy denied drugging Amna. Instead, he claimed that she got that drunk on her own and that he just took advantage of an already incoherent person. However, a few hours after Judy made the post, he deleted it. But thankfully, the moderators of the Pokemon VGC community were able to document the content, which they then summarized in a post made later that day, saying,
This morning, US time, Judy posted his version of the events. I will not link it because he was graphic in his description. You can look it up for yourself if you really want to read it. Suffice it to say, apart from providing a few additional details, he owns up to taking advantage of her. He's removing himself from the Pokemon community with no plans to return.
And so, standing in solidarity with Amna, moderators of the VGC community on Reddit reconfirmed to the members how they value the safety of everyone in the space, saying,
We at r/VGC want the Pokemon community to be a safe place for people of all sexes, genders, orientations, races, creeds, abilities, etc., both on and offline. It is horrible what Judy did to the victim, and we hope for the victim's recovery in the years ahead, and that Judy will do the work necessary to turn his life to a better place. It is also horrible that Judy is not the only person who's taken advantage of someone around Pokemon events, and it is horrible that the community continues to not take proactive measures to keep these spaces safe.
But still, as of today, no legal action has been taken against Judy. This next case, however, involves a major figure in the Pokemon community who got caught with blood on his hands.
Schumacher is one of what's expected to be many witnesses called to the Edgar County Courthouse to testify in Peyton's murder trial.
Terry Payton is a pro-Pokemon gamer who lived with his mother, Kathy Payton, in a small apartment situated in the city of Paris, Illinois. Kathy was 53 years old and had been struggling with severe alcohol and drug addiction for most of her life. She'd lost custody of previous children in the early 1990s due to the struggles with alcohol, and her relationship with Terry's father, Stephen Lee, ended in a divorce that completely broke the family apart. Now, after Stephen was deported to England following domestic abuse allegations, Kathy was left to raise Terry alone in public housing. But even though all they had was each other, Kathy and Terry's relationship was anything but normal, as it was plagued by violence, which would get progressively worse as Terry grew older. Terry's neighbors and members of the community even witnessed Kathy hitting or screaming at Terry on numerous occasions. And additionally, Terry frequently stayed with neighbors when Kathy locked him out of the house. But while Kathy was violent, the neighbors described Terry as peaceful and respectful, even during confrontations with his mother. And Terry's friend, Jacob Shoemaker, was one of the people who witnessed the maltreatment firsthand. He'd seen Kathy hit Terry and heard her scream at him on different occasions.
It wasn't more or less provoked, it was more of an act of self-defense. His mom has always been abusive.
She locked him out of their apartment for days at a time, forcing him to sleep over at the homes of some of his neighbors, like the Lawrence family, who eventually started keeping spare clothes for him. But the worst part wasn't the beatings or the verbal attacks, it was the threats. According to the staff at Terry's high school, they'd received multiple phone calls from Kathy, who constantly threatened them in an attempt to get Terry on the phone. Terry's high school counselor, Stacy Garzolini Skelton, also called the Department of Children and Family Services after Kathy said she would use an electric knife to cut Terry's leg off and would kill him if he touched her medication. And in total, over a dozen calls were made to the Department of Children and Family Services, with officers from the DCFS even visiting their home in March and April of 2011. But every time they tried to talk to Kathy, she refused to cooperate. And whenever Terry was interviewed, he would also deny the maltreatment out of fear. And with no victim statement and zero cooperation of the accused, the investigators would eventually mark the allegations as unfounded. And so no actual action was ever taken to rescue Terry from the horrific situation he was stuck in. And Jacob would also later confirm that Terry was actually so terrified to seek help from anyone after that he found escape in the only way he could, which was playing games online. In April of 2010, Terry signed up to Smogon University, the Pokemon gaming forum where thousands of players from around the world gathered to debate strategies, share battle tactics, and compete in tournaments. He chose the username King Empoleon, inspired by his favorite Pokemon, Empoleon, a water and steel type, known for being proud, powerful, and resilient. And it wouldn't take long for Terry to begin participating in online tournaments, battling with other competitive players in matches. And for the next 14 months, Terry threw himself into this world, amassing 422 posts across countless threads. And in 2010, Terry even made plans to attend the video game championships in Indianapolis, which was an in-person tournament where top players from across the region would compete. He was excited and talked about it online, expressing how badly he wanted to meet some of the people he'd been battling and trading with for months. But at the very last minute, Terry cancelled. On June 24th, he dropped a post on Smogon saying,
"I wish I could join you guys in the fun, but my hopes have been dashed. Can't come, even to join the celebration. Hopefully, I can come to Hawaii. $3,000 plus. Here I come."
In another post, he said,
"Oh hell yeah, hopefully I won't miss out on the action this year. I haven't been to Indy in years."
But by 2011, Terry's activities on the forum began to decline drastically, and it was around this period that Kathy sustained a very serious injury, which stopped her from working multiple jobs, making Terry her primary caregiver now. Due to her condition, Kathy began receiving disability benefits, and slowly, because she was at home all the time, her alcohol addiction got worse. At first, she was using it as a coping mechanism for her situation, but over time, she started relying on heavy painkillers and combining them with daily drinking. And as a result of the substance abuse, Kathy's behavior would become even more increasingly erratic, especially towards Terry. And text messages between Terry and Jacob show the frustration building in those final months. In March 2011, Terry mentioned that he previously tried physical persuasion with his mother, but she tried to put him in jail instead. But it's not clear what he exactly meant by this. But by April of the same year, he sent another text message to Jacob saying,
"I'm going to kill her,"
and that he was going to
legit snack. "I'm sick of that alcoholic."
And later on June 20th, he wrote to Jacob saying,
"We might have mother to bury if she doesn't stop whining about a tape case I don't have."
And on June 22nd, Terry would make what would become his final post on Smogon, where he said,
"I totally forgot to pick up that mon. Oh, what the hell was it anyways?"
Unfortunately, he would never receive an answer to that question. But the next day, on June 23rd, 2011, Terry finally had enough of Kathy's antics. And after waking up to find her drinking whiskey very early in the morning, Terry would get into an argument with his mother after she accused him of forgetting to lock the apartment door. And within a couple of minutes, the argument had escalated into a shouting match where they both ended up exchanging threats. She then accused Terry of stealing from her and forced him to call the police on himself. However, the officers didn't take the call seriously, and Kathy, now seeing that her antics were failing, began to throw garbage at Terry, taking the argument to a whole new level. Now, Terry tried to de-escalate by taking away her alcohol and pouring it down the kitchen sink, and that's when Kathy attacked him. She clawed at his arms, tried to bite him, and backed him into a corner in the kitchen, threatening to end his life right there and then. And then Kathy reached for a large knife in the cabinet. Terry knew that she was indeed going to use it after all the threats she'd made about ending his life, and he believed she meant it this time. So Terry grabbed a smaller knife from the kitchen counter and immediately stabbed his mother 7 times in the chest and neck. He then threw her against the wall, pushing her down and hitting her head on the concrete floor multiple times, leading to severe skull fractures and brain hemorrhaging. Now, after the stabbing, Terry didn't call for help or try to give first aid. Instead, he left the apartment to clear his head, walked to McDonald's, and bought food. He also went to Walmart to purchase certain items before heading back to the house. and upon his return, Terry dragged Kathy's body from the kitchen to the bedroom to conceal it, and he then began to clean up the blood on the kitchen floor. And shortly after he was done, he sent a message to Jacob.
I killed El Madre, and I need help getting rid of the body. At about 2, we got into a fight, and my dark side surged out, and I stabbed her 7 times, after mercilessly beating the hell out of her.
On top of that, he also published a post on Facebook saying,
I'm a monster.
And consumed by guilt, Terry then decided to confess to another friend, Colin Hollowell, that he'd killed Kathy. But upon seeing Colin's shocked reaction, Terry tried to do damage control by claiming that he was just kidding. And Colin responded, you could probably get self-defense out of it if it were true. And so eventually, Terry decided to turn himself in to the police and dialed 911. And within hours after the fight, the police would respond to the call and arrived to find Kathy with 7 stab wounds in her chest and neck. But even though he'd just taken the life of his own mother, Terry would receive immense support from the internet, with many of the people defending him. According to his supporters, had the killing not occurred, the maltreatment would have continued. And some even agreed that Terry's actions were self-defense. And in order to help Terry fight the case, his supporters would even raise funds to pay his legal fees. One anonymous advocate, for example, would even go ahead to create a Facebook page called Never Give Up on Terry Payton, which was meant to rally support during his detention and trial.
He just tried to protect himself because she's crazy. His mom is absolutely crazy. I don't have a good word to say about her.
This support overwhelmed Terry, and his first words to the public after his arrest were, however, his statement angered members of the public too, including Kathy's sister, Janice Bruno.
He is not insane. He was talked into it by all of you people. I did help him. I should have helped my sister.
You know what? His freaking...
Don't you touch me, ma'am, or you'll be sitting in jail.
She argued that the claims of maltreatment were exaggerated, especially since Terry was physically larger than Kathy, who also had a disability at this point. But even with the immense support he received online, Terry was still charged with 2 counts of first-degree offenses. And while he was still a minor at the time, the level of brutality involved in the murder pushed the authorities to try him as an adult. The actual trial would eventually begin in February 2013, nearly 2 years after that June morning. And when Terry eventually took the stand in court, he broke down in tears as he explained his experience living with Kathy and describing the events that happened on the day of the murder. After Terry's testimony, the case went to the jury, and 5 hours later, they returned with a verdict. The jury found Terry guilty of the lesser charge of second-degree murder, as they believed he was indeed acting in self-defense.
The decision, I think, really came down to whether his actions were reasonable. It's a fair reading of the jury's verdict that they did not think they were reasonable, but that they did think that he believed he was acting in self-defense. Try to get him what we think is a fair sentence. This charge carries probation. The young man has no previous criminal record, and we don't think he's a danger to the community.
And so in June 2013, Terry was sentenced to 8 years in prison, taking into account his youth, his lack of prior criminal record, and his history of maltreatment. But this next case is even more horrifying, since both the victims and perpetrators were
my son and my boyfriend's daughters.
Okay,
they went for a walk, and they haven't come home, and it's now almost midnight.
It was around 7 p.m. on June 7, 2017, when 2 step-siblings, 10-year-old Aiden Demi Zelmer and 10-year-old Kaya Campbell, left their home on Forest Drive in Thornton, Colorado. They had a simple mission: to steal Pokemon cards from a nearby Walgreens grocery store. Earlier that day, Aiden had gone through his stepsister's Pokemon card collection and destroyed some of them, and this greatly upset Kaya, as she loved Pokemon cards and collected them religiously. She even made YouTube videos showing them off.
Hey guys, so today I have a Pokemon card opening for you guys, and it is the Evolutions version.
So the plan was to steal new cards from the store to replace the ones Aiden destroyed. However, just before midnight, Aiden's mother, Katie Zelmer, would place a call through to 911.
And I've gone driving around looking for them. I can't find them anywhere. They left here around 7.
Do they normally go for this long of walks?
No. Oh, they had mentioned running to the store and coming back.
Which store would they have gone to? The King Supers?
Yeah, King Supers.
The kids had been gone for hours at this point, and since neither of them had a cell phone, Katie had no way of reaching them, and so the police immediately dispatched a team to search the area for the kids, as well as another team to interview Katie. And while the officers were still at the house getting Katie's statement, Kaya's father, Jacob, called to inform Katie that he'd found Aiden walking alone on the street. But the only problem was that Kaya was still nowhere to be seen, and as soon as Jacob and Aiden got home, police immediately took Aiden to the station for questioning. And although Aiden was immediately cooperative and willing to talk, the cops would quickly realize that finding Kaya was not going to be an easy task.
What was Kai wearing?
She was wearing a Broncos shirt. It was red or blue. I don't remember.
While Aiden claimed that he couldn't even remember the color of clothes Kaya wore, other family members confirmed that she put on an orange shirt. And as soon as the police got that confirmation, they sent out an Amber Alert the next morning. More than 20 police officers and volunteers from the community set out to search for Kaya, with missing person posters. They checked bodies of water, combed through green belts, and knocked on doors. But still, Kaya was nowhere to be seen. But while the search was going on, the detectives would attempt to get more information about Aiden's relationship with Kaya.
Have you ever hit Kaya before?
I've never hit any girl before.
Although Aiden's willingness to replace the damaged Pokemon cards suggested an improvement in their relationship, actually stealing new cards proved to be easier said than done. Store security footage captured Aiden and Kaya entering the store just before 7:15 p.m, heading straight to the game section. But their attempt to steal the Pokemon cards would turn out to be unsuccessful, as they discovered that the cards had been secured in a glass case to prevent theft. And so Aiden then quickly changed the plan and filled his jacket with candy before exiting the store with Kaya instead. They initially headed to another Walgreens store to try again, but had to make a quick stop at home after Kaya complained about being thirsty.
Originally, we were first just gonna walk straight down this street and just keep going all the way there. But she said she wanted water, so we went home and got the backpack and got a big jug of water and a cup.
Now Aiden told the officers that they were at the house for less than 5 minutes, just enough to load their backpack with enough water, give Aiden's twin brother some of the stolen candy, and head out again to complete their mission. However, using the security footage recovered from the first Walgreens store and the map of the route Aiden provided, the police discovered that Aiden and Kaya walked through a different route entirely. Now on their way home, Aiden said that he noticed that the weather had become gloomy and that it was about to rain, so he advised that they seek shelter under some branches to avoid getting wet.
And she was saying, like, if it doesn't rain within like 5 or 6 minutes, I say we get up and start walking home quick, so that we have a chance to get home before it rains.
However, this is when Aiden's story would start to sound sketchy, because he later mentioned that he struggled to walk back home under the same rain that he supposedly tried to avoid by waiting. Now on their walk home through the thunderstorm, Aiden and Kaya supposedly got separated. According to Aiden, Kaya suddenly ran off after getting upset about something that he couldn't explain. He claimed to have looked for her in the rain for about 30 to 45 minutes, but simply couldn't find her.
Jacoby, my mom's boyfriend, Kaya's dad, pulled up and started yelling for me. I ran over and got in the car, and then he took me over to the house, and that's when I started talking to the cops and going back over here with them.
Now the officers, noticing that many details on Aiden's story were not lining up, pleaded with him to give them any kind of information that could lead them to Kaya. At that point, it had been over 8 hours since she'd been last seen, but after realizing that they were getting nowhere with the interrogation, the officers stepped out to come up with another plan with the rescue team.
Well, I want you to know, we've already had officers all throughout that area, Aiden, with dogs. You know how dogs work, right?
I'm guessing they sniff.
I mean, they're going to be able to pick up her scent.
Now the dogs sent out with the rescue team weren't able to pick up Kaya's scent on the route Aiden actually traced, which clearly confirmed that Aiden wasn't telling them everything he knew. But just when they thought they'd hit a deadlock, another officer, who'd gone to confirm the surveillance footage at the second Walgreens store, discovered a new piece of information.
They didn't see you go into the store.
I had went in. Hey, I'm not sure what I have to do for you guys to prove that.
And not just that, the outfit that Aiden wore to the first store wasn't the same one he was wearing when the police found him walking home, but security footage from Walgreens captured him wearing a gray sweatshirt.
Your behavior has not been normal around other people that know you very well, okay? So you need to make sure that you're telling us the truth.
And the next question the officers asked Aiden gave them a glimpse into what actually might have happened to Kaya.
If you wanted to hurt somebody, how would you hurt them?
I would always fist fights. That was really the only way I would hurt somebody.
The officers, now frustrated by Aiden's lack of answers, decided to bring in Katie, hoping she would be able to get him to talk. And the moment she walked in, Aiden's demeanor changed completely.
What's going on, Aiden? I'm literally giving them all the clues, and it's frustrating me. Won't stop blaming me.
He began to cry, re-emphasizing his innocence. But his mom, knowing something was up with him, began to ask questions about their whereabouts, what activities they did, and what people they saw or met along the way.
Did you guys do anything you weren't supposed to do, like smoke some weed or drink or steal something? Or I know you were going to steal something, but did you?
Now at this point, the police got consent from Aiden's parents to collect his clothing and shoes for DNA testing and carry out a fingernail scraping test and buckle swab on him. They also arranged for a polygraph test to be carried out to obtain more information from Aiden.
And all they wanted to do was accuse him and not listen.
Right.
And he just wants to talk to somebody who will actually listen to him rather than just accuse him of things.
Now since this test needed to be carried out in private, Katie was asked to step out of the room. And in the meantime, the officers tried to make small talk with Aiden to get to know him a bit and get him settled before she began the actual test.
Do you know if you've ever been a patient like in a mental hospital?
I've gone to Jefferson Hills before.
Is that a mental hospital?
It's like they do like mental evaluation holds on you.
Now the Jefferson Hills Aiden referred to was a hospital that offers group therapy and other intensive programs to people seeking help to manage mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, and acute mental crisis. And although Aiden told the officers that his mental health had improved as well as his anger, Aiden's case file at the social service office told another story. It turned out that Aiden had a long history of violent outbursts, blackmail behavior, anger, and aggression, and even had a caseworker assigned to him for behavior and in-home therapy.
Have you been diagnosed with anything?
ADHD, major depression, major emotional disorders, anger.
But despite being aware of all these mental diagnoses, his parents left Kaya with him unsupervised. Aiden even had been prescribed medication to manage his mental health issues. However, he chose to forego the medication and replaced it with alcohol and pot. Aiden also confirmed that he and his twin brother had spent some time in the social services facility after Katie called the police on them for smoking pot and drinking in their home. And when the officers asked Aiden to explain what happened while he was with Kaya from the beginning, he declined and showed no interest in telling his story again.
Could we do the test without me having to tell the story?
No, unfortunately we can't. Because I need to make sure that I'm asking the right questions on the test. When I ask you the questions, your body will tell me what the truth is, so, okay.
Despite his initial lack of enthusiasm though, Aiden would later change his mind and spent the next 30 minutes retelling the entire story to the officer. And by the end of that session, the officers allowed Aiden to take a bathroom break and met with the rest of the investigative team to go over the story Aiden had shared. Now by the time Aiden came back from his bathroom break, he suddenly decided he needed to correct a part of his story and flagged down another detective immediately.
I realized I probably tell you is like when me and her split up, I didn't lose her. I intentionally left her because she was really annoying me.
The new detective asked Aiden to remain in the testing room for the polygraph examiner to return, so they could inform her about the new piece of information. However, the longer Aiden remained alone in the room, the more nervous and agitated he became. And after waiting for a brief period, the examiner and a couple of other officers came back into the room to inform Aiden that Kaya had been found.
We just found Kaya's body.
What?
Yeah.
Around 5:30 p.m., a resident near 128th Avenue and Jasmine Street had seen Kaya face down in a drainage ditch about a mile and a half from the family home.
I think my wife and I and our kids just found her.
Okay, are you in contact with her?
No, I unfortunately I think that she's
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Her body was partially undressed, her pants and underwear pulled around her ankles, and her shirt pushed up. The police took DNA swabs to further confirm if she's been taken advantage of, and if her killer's DNA could be recovered. And neighbors living around the drainage ditch would later tell police they heard a child crying near the exact spot between 8:30 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. the previous night. And this was right around the time Kaya and Aiden would have been in that area. The Amber Alert that was sent out for Kaya was cancelled immediately, and the case became a homicide investigation. And suddenly, Aiden's story about the rain separation didn't just sound wrong, it sounded like a lie. Now the polygraph examiner, knowing that the test would not continue since Kaya had been found, tried to convince him to finally explain what happened. But his next reaction would change everything.
Wait, are you guys accusing me?
Aiden.
What's happening then?
Aiden. Aiden, listen to me.
What's happening?
Aiden.
And while he was sitting in that interview room, spinning several stories about how he got separated from Kaya, the officers actually found the footage they'd been looking for, which was surveillance footage from the second Walgreens store. It turns out that the CCTV cameras at the back of the store had captured them walking away from the store, and just 40 minutes later, another camera recorded Aiden returning home, notably dry and alone. To calm the situation, the officers brought Katie in to comfort Aiden, who was now wailing terribly, and once inside, she then sat on the floor with Aiden in her arms, trying to trick him into giving out more information. Aiden informed Katie that he wanted to reveal new facts about the case, but wanted a lawyer present before sharing them. And after Katie relayed this to the detectives, they let them know that Aiden would need to undergo a test to determine if he'd taken advantage of Kaya because of the state she was found in.
That's to see if you
What the hell?
The officers instantly transported Aiden to the hospital for the test, and then to the social services facility on Katie's request. And within 48 hours, the forensic teams processed DNA evidence obtained from Aiden and Kaya and uncovered Aiden's DNA on Kaya's body. They also confirmed that the blood gotten from Aiden's clothing and shoes had come from Kaya. And so at 11:38 p.m. on June 10, 2017, officers arrested Aiden on suspicion of first-degree murder, supported by the forensic evidence and surveillance footage. The coroner would also later confirm that Kaya died from blunt force trauma to the head. She was hit at least 5 separate times with an unknown object, which caused her skull to fracture in multiple places. And so after Aiden's arrest, he was held in juvenile detention, while he still continued to maintain his innocence. However, over time, Aiden would actually get comfortable with a fellow detainee, who would eventually become the first person to hear the truth about what really happened that night. According to Aiden's story, he'd blacked out from the stress of looking for where to steal the cars, and proceeded to beat Kaya with a metal pipe instead. And in the middle of the violent attack, he saw her brain through the fractures in her skull, at which point he began dragging her body to the drainage ditch to hide what he'd done. And this confession matched every piece of physical evidence the investigators had recovered. And so the prosecutors moved to try Aiden as an adult in January of 2018, even though he wasn't actually an adult yet. But while the trial proceedings were still going on, the police cut a plea deal with Aiden to drop the other charges, including initial violation accusations related to why Kaya's body was found partially undressed, under the condition that he pleads guilty. And they did this because the intimate violation allegations couldn't actually be proven and had to be removed from the case. And so after a long trial, Aiden pleaded guilty to first-degree murder on February 14th, 2019. In his plea agreement, Aiden finally admitted he struck Kaya at least 5 times with a metal pipe and dragged her to the ditch, but he never actually explained why.
He wanted to do this. His actions certainly dictate that he intended to kill Kaya Campbell for what he did, and it took quite an effort to do it.
Throughout the proceedings, he never gave a motive or showed remorse. And so on March 11th, 2019, Aiden Zellmer was finally sentenced to life in prison with chance of parole after 40 years. And while this case was absolutely devastating, this next case gets even worse, as it involves a deceptive Pokemon transaction that ended in bloodshed.
She left her home at 8:57 a.m., which was also the last time her family saw her alive.
Around 8:57 a.m. on February 7th, 2017, a woman named Shashia Moreau was caught on surveillance camera walking out of her family home in Heist-Opdenberg, Belgium. She was headed to catch a train to Antwerp to meet with someone she'd met online, to trade Pokemon figurines and cards, and maybe pick up something rare for her collection. Weeks before that morning, Shashia had connected with Johnny van den Broek on a Facebook group dedicated to Pokemon enthusiasts. Johnny was 25 years old, Shashia was 20 years old, and the two would constantly bond over their shared interest in cosplay and Pokemon. She worked part-time at the indoor playground, spent her free time at conventions, and built an impressive collection of figurines, some worth up to 500 euros or $580 each. And when Johnny offered to show her his impressive collection and give her rare items for free with no strings attached, Shashia believed him, not knowing that Johnny had a pattern. He'd used the same tactic before, where he would invite young women from the group to his apartment and sometimes even offer to pay them up to 500 euros for intimate encounters. But despite that, on that Tuesday morning, she boarded the train from Heist-Opdenberg to Antwerp, which took about 30 minutes, arriving at the Antwerp Central Station at 10:41 a.m. And there she encountered a man matching Johnny's description at the station, and so they subsequently headed to his apartment together. However, at 11:02 a.m., Johnny messaged her on Facebook to confirm their meeting and check if she was en route, even though she was already with him. And the events that unfolded over the next 21 minutes would clarify why he sent that message. Upon getting to Johnny's apartment, Shashia quickly noticed that his intentions weren't about trading Pokemon at all. He leaned in to kiss her, and even though she pulled away, making it clear that she wasn't interested, he pressed on, and things would escalate from there, as Johnny would then proceed to keep going with Shashia before strangling her to death. And by noon, Johnny, seeing that Shashia was dead, began to build his alibi. He took her phone and began to send out messages to her friends and canceled the plans she'd made for later that day. The idea was to make it seem like Shashia was still alive and moving around the city. And shortly after, Johnny left his apartment for an electronics store, MediaMarkt, to buy a shovel. And upon his return, he wrapped Shashia's body and buried her in the small courtyard behind his building. Now, in the process of disposing the body, Johnny injured his hand, and this was evident when he showed up to his evening shift at McDonald's with his hand bandaged. Now, meanwhile, back in Heist-Opdenberg, Shashia's family was growing worried because she was supposed to be home on time for dinner, but she didn't show up, and her phone went straight to voicemail. And so after hours passed with no word from her, Shashia's family reported her missing to Belgium's cell for missing persons, and the unit moved quickly, tracing her phone records and movements. And it wasn't long until they uncovered the Facebook messages between her and John, and based on this information, the police were able to locate Johnny and bring him in for questioning. However, Johnny simply claimed that he'd not seen Shashia that day, saying that while he did go to the station to wait for her, she never actually arrived, pointing out the fake Facebook message he sent. However, the surveillance footage cameras at Antwerp Central Station showed them meeting and leaving together, completely destroying his alibi. And so 2 days after Shashia's disappearance, investigators searched Johnny's apartment and building, discovering bloodstains covering his mattress and a bundle of hair that would later be confirmed as Shashia's. And when the police questioned him about the injury on his hand, he couldn't explain it consistently either, as the story kept changing. And after searching his property, the police would soon uncover Shashia's body in a shallow grave in his backyard, bound and hidden beneath the dirt and debris. And so Johnny was arrested and immediately taken into custody to be charged and tried for Shashia's murder. But the trial didn't actually begin until October of 2019. And over the period of that time that Johnny spent behind bars, he claimed that he couldn't remember what exactly happened that day. However, on the first day of the actual trial, Johnny changed his claim and admitted to ending Shashia's life accidentally. He claimed that they had consensual intercourse and decided to explore choking. And Johnny claimed that he didn't notice when Shashia began to run out of air and didn't mean for her to die. Johnny even demonstrated how the choking happened in court. He used a doll to show how he placed his hands around Shashia's neck and squeezed. He also claimed that his eyes were closed and didn't notice any distress from Shashia. However, of course, the autopsy carried out revealed bruising on her thighs and injuries consistent with non-consensual violence. And this demonstration would end up traumatizing the entire courtroom greatly, so much so that one of the jurors became unwell while watching their demonstration, and the proceedings even had to be paused till the next day. And by the next morning, the prosecutors brought in psychiatrists to evaluate Johnny extensively, after which they diagnosed him as a psychopath with an IQ between 110 and 115. They also noted that he exhibited narcissistic traits and had sadistic tendencies and no sense of boundaries. One psychiatrist even called him a ticking time bomb that detonated on February 7th and warned that he was at high risk of reoffending. And so on October 25th, 2019, the jury found Johnny guilty of murder after rejecting his consensual narrative and ruling it premeditated violence to fulfill extreme fantasies. And so 3 days later, on October 28th, the judge sentenced Johnny to life in prison, plus 15 years of judicial supervision upon any potential release. And next, we'll talk about the most terrifying crimes in the Steam community. With Steam holding an estimated 75% of the PC gaming market, it didn't come as a surprise when indie game studio Wolfire Games decided to launch their new game Overgrowth on the platform in 2017. However, after their CEO, David Rosen, decided to sell the game at a cheaper price on other platforms, Steam and its parent company Valve weren't really happy about that fact. In a blog post made on May 6, 2021, David explained the reasoning behind this decision, saying,
"When new video game stores were opening, they charged much lower commissions than Valve. I decided that I would provide my game Overgrowth at a lower price to take advantage of the lower commission rates. But when I asked Valve about this plan, they replied that they would remove Overgrowth from Steam if I allowed it to be sold at a lower price anywhere, even from my own website. And while talking to other developers about problems that they were having with Steam, they kept referring to it as a monopoly and saying that there was nothing that we could do. I wondered, has anyone actually checked if Valve is obeying antitrust law?"
And so in April of 2021, Wolfire Games filed a lawsuit accusing Valve of violating antitrust law, which ensures that companies are using fair business practices to protect both consumers and other businesses. According to their lawsuit, Valve prevented developers from selling their games at a cheaper price outside of Steam, all while taking an extraordinary high cut from nearly every sale in their store. And this extraordinarily high cut is Steam's 30% commission for every purchase, or downloadable content that added new elements to their games. With Steam only giving 70% to developers, they had to raise prices in order to maintain their profit margins, which meant that players had to pay even more. And since Steam had completely dominated the PC gaming marketplace, developers and gamers had no choice but to comply, at least according to Wolfire Games. While the legal proceedings were still pending, it actually inspired a larger lawsuit in the United Kingdom, which accused Steam of ripping off 14 million gamers in the UK since 2017. On June 5th, 2024, Vicky Shotbolt, a digital rights campaigner, alongside a law firm named Millbrook London LLP, filed a class action lawsuit against Valve for violating the antitrust law, suggesting that Valve forces developers to increase prices, which in turn makes players
pay too much for purchasing PC games and add-on content. Valve is rigging the market and taking advantage of UK players.
The lawsuit demanded that Valve reimburse UK gamers for their overpriced games, which could cost Valve a total of £656 million or over $880 million. But even though gamers and developers were supposed to be the biggest winners in this legal drama, many of them defended Valve instead. They argued that the extraordinarily high cut that Steam takes from developers is the industry standard, and as it turns out, other online gaming stores and Microsoft applied the exact same commission rate of 30%, while Humble Store gets a 25% cut, which isn't really far off. Console stores, mobile gaming stores, and even physical stores also got the same 30% cut per video game sold. The only outlier here is Epic Games, which takes only 12%. And as one Reddit user also pointed out,
Valve brought devs and publishers back to PC, offered the same cut as consoles, and also saved them a ton of money due to all digital sales, which means no manufacturing, inventory, space, shipping, or shelf space needed, no resales or used markets, unlike the physical market for consoles, and no additional cut given to brick and mortar stores. Valve helped devs and publishers become more profitable than ever.
And as for the game developer side, another Redditor mentioned,
there are active game developers who were in the industry before Steam. They talked about how annoying and expensive it was to manage their own sales, returns, and credit card fraud, and how happy they are to pay 30% to Steam for them to do all of that. This is even before taking into account the exposure and visibility, Next Fest and season sales and all the rest.
As for Steam blocking developers from selling games at a lower price outside their platform, Valve clarified that they're only implementing this rule for games unlocked with Steam keys, because even if a game was purchased outside of Steam, these keys allowed users to run it while using the platform's features, such as the Steam library storage and cloud saves, both of which let gamers access their game and their save progress through multiple computers. Now Valve discourages developers from selling Steam keys for their games at a cheaper price, as it is important that they don't give Steam customers a worse deal than Steam key purchasers. This means that developers can actually sell their games at a lower rate as long as they're selling a non-Steam version. But since both the Wolfire Games and UK lawsuits are still pending, whether Valve is really guilty of rigging the gaming industry remains to be seen. But while this next case didn't target Valve directly, it completely devastated the user base so badly that the FBI had to get involved. On November 6, 2011, a mysterious message suddenly appeared on Steam's official forum.
Ever wanted to dominate the servers you play on with guaranteed results, but you were too afraid to cheat because of ban risks? Visit fknowned.com.
Now this notice was taken down soon after users found it, but if the hacking was only to post the ad, then there wasn't much harm done, right? Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, because 4 days later, on November 10, a message from Valve CEO Gabe Newell revealed that the hacker did get something more. The message read,
"Our Steam forums were defeated on the evening of Sunday, November 6th. We learned that intruders obtained access to a Steam database in addition to the forums. This database contained information including usernames, hashed and salted passwords, game purchases, email addresses, billing addresses, and encrypted credit card information. We do not have evidence that the encrypted credit card numbers or personally identifying information were taken by the intruders. We're still investigating."
And since there wasn't any concrete evidence that their information was compromised, gamers were at least thankful that Gabe updated them quickly, with one saying,
"Notice how quick they notify their users? Thank you, Gabe. Hope nobody has anything too bad happen to them as a result of this."
However, on February 11th, 2012, just 3 months later, Gabe would come out to admit that their investigation was not looking good.
Recently, we learned that it was probable that the intruders obtained a copy of a backup file with information about Steam transactions. This backup file contained usernames, email addresses, encrypted billing addresses, and encrypted credit card information.
And so while Steam passwords were safe, the billing addresses and credit card information being copied was terrifying, as they could lead to credit card fraud. And so this made finding the hackers all the more urgent, as there was so much more damage they could do with potentially thousands of users' information. At the time the statement was released, Steam had no idea who the hacker could be. But just 8 days later, on February 3rd, 2012, a mysterious leaked call between the FBI and Scotland Yard suddenly appeared on YouTube, pointing them in the direction of an individual believed to be behind the hack. This call was leaked by hacking group Anonymous as a protest against the arrests of hacktivists or hacker activists Brian Cleary and Jake Davis, who were suspects in the hacking of government websites like the CIA. The FBI and Scotland Yard representatives were heard discussing their cases over this call, but the Steam community took particular interest when they began discussing a young hacker outside of the hacktivist group.
Just one thing, the lad who was CSL sec is his real name, known as Tawongs. He's a 15-year-old kid who's basically just doing this all for attention and a bit of an idiot.
The hacker they mentioned was only known by the name T Wong Z, a student who was arrested by the UK police just before Christmas in 2011. He was connected to a hacking attack on a credit union website, as well as a DDoS attack on a school's website. After he was taken into custody, T Wong Z wrote a statement confirming that he was indeed the one behind the Steam hacking incident.
So we're just researching that. One of the ones he is claimed credit for in this statement is a thing called Steam, which is some sort of gaming site.
According to the agent, Taewong Z admitted that he also stole credit card information from 32,000 Steam users. Now, the FBI eventually confirmed that the leaked call was real, but they didn't officially confirm if Taewong Z was indeed the one who hacked into Steam's database in November 2011. And since he was only 15 years old at the time, his identity and legal proceedings about his case have been kept from the public. Instead, the police assured Steam users that his hard drives have been confiscated and that Taewong Z began cooperating after getting scolded by his parents. This suggests that any leaked information from this incident was now contained. The idea that a 15-year-old could hack into a database of a billion-dollar company is troubling, and yet Steam's security would remain so vulnerable that 3 years later, Valve saw a 2,000% increase in account theft, leading to over 77,000 gamers losing their account every month. In April of 2015, Valve launched the Steam Guard mobile authenticator, where users could add their phone numbers to confirm logins using their mobile devices. But despite this extra layer to confirm authentic logins, 2015 would prove to be the worst year in Steam security breaches. Even with the new Steam Guard in place, users found their accounts hijacked and in-game items stolen. Hackers often targeted accounts that had valuable digital goods, and with Steam accounts, they could take rare Counter-Strike skins that could be sold for thousands of dollars. But by December 10, 2015, Valve admitted that this year saw a significant increase in instances of account hijacking.
What used to be a handful of hackers is now a highly effective, organized network in the business of stealing and selling items. We see around 77,000 accounts hijacked and pillaged each month. These are not new or naive users. These are professional CSGO players, Reddit contributors, item traders, etc. Users can be targeted randomly as part of a larger group or even individually. It's a losing battle to protect your items against someone who steals them for a living.
And this was a big problem, since some players had in-game items that cost them their hard-earned money, not to mention rare items that took time and effort to obtain that were now at risk. And so by March 2016, Kaspersky Labs, a cybersecurity company, launched an investigation into how Steam's vulnerabilities spiked in 2015. According to their experts, a malware called Steam Stealers went on the market within underground forums. This malware allowed hackers to easily hijack gaming accounts. And while malware being sold as a service was new at this point, Steam Stealers was popular since it only cost $3, whereas other malware for sale could go up to $500. And so this unfortunately made hacking into Steam accounts much easier and cheaper. And since Valve's investigation suggested that the hijacked accounts were those that didn't use the Steam Guard mobile authenticator, they proposed a solution that left gamers conflicted.
Instead of trying to prevent hackers from being able to steal a Steam account that hasn't enabled two-factor authentication, we tried removing their ability to profit from the theft.
Valve would then implement a delay in delivery on in-game item trading. This meant that players who wanted to trade items like Team Fortress and Counter-Strike weapons would have to wait up to 7 days for the transaction to be completed. But this didn't sit right with the players, as one person pointed out, saying,
"So inconveniencing millions of people in order to maybe stop a few thousand stupid people from getting hacked is okay?"
Valve also promised to restore any compromised accounts and duplicate items stolen from the users. But this created an entirely new problem, since duplicating rare items made them easier to get. And the more common these rare items became, the less valuable they could be sold. So gamers collecting them watched the inventory lose worth overnight. And yet 2015 would continue revealing security flaws in Steam's system, with the strangest one happening on Christmas Day. Gamers who logged into their Steam account on December 25th, 2015 between 11:50 in the morning to 1:20 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time were met with a scene straight out of a nightmare. Instead of the store page showing the winner's sale, users were shown personal information of other gamers. This included billing and email addresses, purchasing history, the last 4 digits of their mobile number, and the last 2 digits of their credit cards. Around 34,000 users' information were shared to random strangers on Steam, causing Valve to shut down their platform temporarily, leaving millions locked out on Christmas Day while they scrambled to fix the leak. Now 20 minutes later, Steam came back online, and the pages appeared normal, but the users were still left confused and worried about what happened. And it took Valve 5 more days to release a statement to explain what happened. In a post from December 30th, 2015, Valve revealed that on Christmas morning, Steam received a DDoS attack which flooded their store page. And while fixing the problem, they released a caching rule that allowed users to access a previously saved version of the Steam website, so they could use it normally while Valve was still trying to fix the pages. But while they were still trying to solve the problem, the hackers launched a second attack, causing the caching rule to malfunction and start serving users each other's data, exposing private information to strangers. But when the issue was brought up by fans online, Valve assured them that anyone who didn't log in during the 90-minute window was safe from this error. However, this still meant that thousands of users had their information accidentally leaked. And while Valve promised to improve their system and prevent these attacks from happening again, there have been no reports of the culprits being arrested and charged. And while these hijackers were alarming, the next mistake gave nearly everyone access to steal their favorite streamers' accounts.
The thing is with this is that it's accepting any code. As long as you don't put anything there, you can gain access to anyone's account.
Between July 21st and 24th, 2015, there was a serious security issue that affected all Steam accounts, giving anyone the chance to access and change another person's passwords by only knowing their Steam ID and clicking the Forgot Password option. This was because Steam's recovery feature didn't require the security code, which was only sent to the account's owner's email or phone number to confirm that they were the real account holder. What's even more surprising is that Valve remained unaware of it until July 25th, 2015, 4 days after this error began. According to gaming news site GameGrin, Twitch streamer SodaPoppin was on a live stream when he accidentally showed this unknown security exploit while logging into his Steam account. Now SodaPoppin quickly ended the live stream and took down the video, but his fans had already seen it, and since the flaw in the system was so easy to bypass, some of his 30,000 viewers began trying it out, and all they needed was to know someone else's Steam ID to get into their accounts. Now the internet soon began talking about it, so YouTuber Elmho posted this video that showed how this exploit worked.
Official Steam page, enter your account name that you want to hack or whatever it is. Search it. Yes, email and account resets. Instead of actually typing in here, enter the account recovery you received, you don't actually type in anything there, continue. The thing is with this is that it's accepting any code. As long as you don't put anything there, you can gain access to anyone's account.
Streamers and professional gamers whose Steam IDs were shown during their live streams became easy targets, and soon Resolution, Olaf Meister, and Kerrigan, among others, flooded social media to announce that their accounts had been stolen. However, streamers weren't the only ones affected. A Redditor commented on a thread that,
"I'm not a streamer, but this also happened to me, and it seems to have happened at the same time as all those affected."
And another added,
"Same, no access to my account yet that I know of, but I keep getting spammed with emails about attempted logins, and my account has been disabled twice from too many attempted logins."
With reports flooding in through Reddit and social media, Valve finally caught on later that day. However, with people repeatedly changing the passwords of other users, gamers got locked out of their accounts. But later the same day, Valve released a statement through the gaming website Kotaku to explain that their password reset error was simply due to a bug which they already fixed.
"We are resetting passwords on accounts with suspicious password changes during the period, or may have otherwise been affected. Relevant users will receive an email with a new password. Please note that while an account password was potentially modified during this period, the password itself was not revealed. We apologize for any inconvenience."
Valve also issued a 7-day ban on any account that was logged into a new device within a time period. And although no stolen information or in-game items were reported, this supposed bug became known as one of Steam's dumbest failures. And Steam's history of security issues didn't stop there, as millions of user information would soon end up for sale on the dark web.
Word on the web is that Steam may have just experienced the largest breach to date, with credentials of 89 million accounts allegedly being sold on the dark web.
On May 13, 2025, someone using the username Machine1337 posted an ad on a Russian dark web forum known only as XXS. The ad claimed that Machine1337 was selling the information of 89 million Steam users for only $5,000. And to prove that the information was legit, Machine allowed people to check 3,000 user information samples that he posted for free. The data included users' phone numbers, SMS logs of their two-factor authentication for their Steam logins, and other metadata. Now the same day, Underdark AI, a cybersecurity firm firm that monitors the dark web, posted a warning about the compromised Steam accounts on their LinkedIn, and this post would immediately send everyone in a panic. Tech news and gaming websites quickly spread the news, reporting yet another major security breach on Steam. Alarmingly, a different cybersecurity company, ZeroFox, reported that the username Machine1337 was also involved in other leaks from big companies like Apple, Temu, Huawei, and Snapchat, with Coinbase, one of the largest cryptocurrency platforms, as their next suspected target. After Machine posted this message on Telegram on May 15th, saying,
"Coinbase, coming soon."
And though it's terrifying to think that millions of user information was up for grabs, people wondered why Machine would sell this much information for only $5,000. So, gaming journalist Mellow_online1 went to investigate if the data was even real by checking the 3,000 sample records. Now there, they actually confirmed that it contained real phone numbers, previous authentication codes, and more. And Mellow also confirmed that the third-party vendor that sent the authentication codes was Twilio, a cloud communications company. And so they implied that the alleged seller has back-end access to Twilio. Now the internet was quick to jump to this conclusion and blamed Twilio for the leaked accounts, forcing a spokesperson from the company to release a statement to Bleeping Computer, saying,
"There's no evidence to suggest that Twilio was breached. We've reviewed a sampling of the data found online and see no indication that this data was obtained from Twilio."
But Valve would also launch their own investigation, and the conclusion surprised everyone.
"We've examined the leak sample and have determined that this was not a breach of Steam systems. This leak consisted of all the text messages that included one-time codes that were only valid for 15-minute timeframes, and the phone numbers that they were sent to. The leaked data did not associate the phone numbers with a Steam account, password information, payment information, or other personal data.
Steam also showed their users that they
do not need to change their password or phone numbers as a result of this event."
As it turns out, the data that Machine1337 was selling was thankfully useless. The internet took another look at the 3,000 samples and realized that the information included the SMS delivery status and routing costs. This meant that the leaked data were likely from an SMS provider and not from Steam or even Twilio. Still, experts warned that Machine1337 had already sold the information on May 14th, and whoever bought it could still use the data for phishing tactics tailored to Steam users. Meanwhile, the Steam game in our next story was confirmed to have taken advantage of its gamers in more ways than one.
However, the item he received was the strange professional killstreak Australian rocket launcher attached to the game Abstractism, a virtually worthless item compared to the one that he thought he was getting.
On July 28, 2018, Steam user Poor Asian Boy saw a rare item for Team Fortress 2 being sold for only $100. It was called the Strange Australian Rocket Launcher, a rare item that had a professional killstreak effect which tracked players' kills. And since it usually goes for up to $200, Poor Asian Boy didn't hesitate in buying it at a cheaper price to use in his games. But it was only after purchasing this item that Poor Asian Boy realized that he'd made a mistake. What he bought had the same name and looked exactly like the weapon for Team Fortress 2. His rocket launcher showed that it was for a platforming game called Abstractism instead, a game he didn't play. Poor Asian Boy then went on backpack.tf, a Team Fortress 2 trading forum, to report the incident, and this single post exposed something alarming. Gaming YouTuber Sid Alpha saw Poor Asian Boy's post and immediately checked the item that he'd accidentally bought, and by July 29, 2018, just one day after the original post, he uploaded his findings.
Now, when I went to check the item in question, I saw the developers were already attempting to cover their tracks, changing the name of the item to Nope and changing the image as well. However, when you look at the address URL, it still clearly shows the original name of the item, Strange Professional Killstreak Australian Rocket Launcher.
Sid Alpha discovered that the Extractism developers had renamed their worthless in-game items to mimic expensive Team Fortress 2 gear, and after Poor Asian Boy's post exposed them, they renamed all the items to cover their scam. Sid Alpha also found several useless items posted on their Steam marketplace, all of which were being sold like other in-game items. And despite their products being nonsense, Extractism had apparently launched item drops just a week before. Item drops are special products that players can earn while playing a game, and Extractism encouraged players to grind for hours, promising that longer play sessions increase the odds of earning rare drops. Now, item drops and developers encouraging longer gaming hours aren't unusual, but Extractism's review page told a different story. Some of the first reviewers mentioned that Extractism was using a lot of their computer's powers, even though it was such a simple game, and one user even said that they were
100% certain it's mining Bitcoin on my computer.
Now, Bitcoin mining is using a computer's power to solve a mathematical problem to then get a bit of cryptocurrency in exchange. The problem is that these tasks require so much of a computer's power that it slows down its other processes and consumes a ton of electricity and wireless data. And this was actually what Extractism was doing to its players' computers. As more and more people went on to investigate the game, they soon confirmed that the game contained a crypto mining virus. Now, Ocalo Union, the developer of the game, was quick to deny these theories, saying,
"Bitcoin is outdated. We currently use Extractism to mine mine only Monero coins. Extractism does not mine any cryptocurrency. Probably you're playing on high graphics settings, because they take a bit of CPU and GPU power required for post-processing effects rendering.
This of course was a weird excuse, since Monero coins are still cryptocurrency, and gamers pointed out how Extractism graphics looked more like a mobile game in 2001, which wouldn't require that much CPU or GPU power. Their July update, which was the same update where they launched the item drops, was even found to contain a Trojan, a virus that looked like a useful file but was doing damage to the user and their computer. Now Carlo Union made another statement, even adding it in their patch notes.
Extractism Launcher and Extractism Inventory Service are not Bitcoin miner and are not Monero miner too. These apps are required to connect to Steam and grant items to your inventory.
Now this was of course a blatant attempt to convince gamers to allow the virus to run despite the risk, but thankfully some of the gamers weren't convinced, with one review pointing out,
"You say you don't mind cryptocurrency, but then in the review you say you do, and the way you state it is not in a joking fashion."
And after receiving several reports against Extractism, Steam promptly removed the game from their store on July 30th, but people still wondered how it got past their security measures in the first place. Well, according to geekwire.com,
basically it's because Valve's given up on trying to curate Steam at all. Any developer who can pay a deposit, build a store, wait 30 days, and get through a brief verification period can put their game on Steam. Thus, something like Extractism just had not obviously be a scam for long enough to get through Valve's bare bones application process.
And apart from banning Carlo Union from their store, Valve swept the issue under the rug. They also created a system where players would click confirm a couple of times before trading in-game items on Steam to avoid repeating the poor Asian boy incident. But another thing that Valve should be doing is scrutinizing their developers, which might have prevented what happened in this next story.
Domino was liked for a while because it had Twitch integration and was a fun gladiator sim. Turns out though, the dev is an asshole.
Domina was a gladiator simulation game launched on Steam on April 3rd, 2017 by indie developer Nicolas Big Nick Goris. This single-person developed game received positive reviews for many years and could have set Nicolas up for life as a successful game developer. This was until he decided to use the game to share his political views. On May 6, 2021, Nicolas posted this patch note where he added,
"Weak men lack character. Strong moral fiber is hard to come by. It's earned through hard work and sacrifice, and it cannot be had via explicit content. No, those things are demonic possessions waiting to show you a succubus in the hopes you'll waste a load on her instead of spending that energy studying. No one is gonna give you a goddamn thing, and this whole mess we call civilization is only getting harder. We need solutions, and we need smart men who can work hard and implement those solutions."
While this message seemed like just some out-of-the-place rant that players shrugged off, things continued to spiral downwards from then on, because just a month later, on June 24th, he added this to another patch note.
"Supporting the developer with cash money because he lives in a socialist utopia where nothing works is the best way to ensure timely updates. We'll do our best to keep going in to work every day despite civilization collapse."
By this point, it was clear that Nicolas was using his games as patch notes to voice out his frustrations and spread his political ideologies. Things started to become unacceptable for his fans, however, when he posted this rant about the pandemic on March 9th, 2022.
"Take off the masks. Next time you're at the grocery store, try showing a woman your face. Be confident, unafraid of the lies. Women don't like dudes who cover their faces in fear. What are you afraid of? Getting laid? Grow up."
And it was this patch note that convinced gamers to distance themselves from Nicolas and his game, with one posting,
"You know what women like most? Dudes who are respectful and take care of others, especially vulnerable people. Telling people to take off their masks during a worldwide health crisis in your patch notes is disgusting."
And from then on, the once popular Domina started getting review bombed. And yet, Nicolas continued to double down on his aggressive behavior. On Twitter, he replied to the post calling him out with,
"16 hours ago, you sad tweeted this. 16 hours ago, I was inside my girlfriend. Good woman expect and demand confident, unmasked men who can still pay for things."
And although there were gamers who fully supported Nicolas' views, the negative reviews started flooding in, turning his very positive status into overwhelmingly negative. And apart from Nicolas' rants, people also accused the game of locking previously available content into a paywall in an attempt to make more money off of them. And despite all that, Nicolas remained hostile, even calling out the supposed fake reviews and demanding Steam to take them down. And if his previous patch notes weren't enough to anger the rest of his player base, his next rant definitely enraged an entire community. On March 31st, Nicolas made a transphobic post.
"If you're a man who has inverted his junk, the bestiarius will automatically train animals after healing, but it won't make you a woman."
This obviously sparked outrage from the trans community, with the dominant Steam forum becoming an internet war zone itself. And in the middle of this back and forth, Nicolas' developer account Dolphin Barn Inc. would suddenly get banned from his own game's forums for arguing with gamers. But instead of pulling back on his aggressive comments, Nicolas continued to mock the trans community by posting this in Domina's forum.
"We're out of ideas, mentally unstable, degenerate, and desperate for clout. Let's pretend we're a completely different game to regain relevance. Please don't mention our dead name, Domina, anymore. It's totally normal to change the gender of a video game. Domina doesn't exist, but Dominus does exist. Always has. You just don't know you were playing a man. You have no right to be deceived the same way the poor drunk dudes who trans people like Kefals had contact with without disclosing that they were a man."
Kefals is a Twitch streamer who just weeks before the Dominus post had been swatted at her home. Officers arrested her at gunpoint after someone impersonating her sent death threats to certain politicians. The issue was a major story at the time, and since Kefals didn't seem to have any connection with Domina or Nicolas, many believed believed that the game developer chose to attack her just because of the recent controversy. This turned out to be the final nail in the coffin for Nicholas. In response to this insulting post, Steam permanently banned Dolphin Barn Inc. from their own game's forums for specifically targeting someone in the community. And then, just 2 days after the Dominus post, Steam finally delisted Domina from the store due to Nicholas's behavior. Now meanwhile, this next game developer did more than just insult his critics.
And let your jaw hit the floor in amazement at the depths some developers will sink to when they just can't handle some criticism.
Brothers James and Robert Romine wanted to make video games together, so they founded their own indie development game called Digital Homicide Studios in 2014. This development team would then produce roughly 60 games between 2014 and 2016, which was a surprising, if not suspicious feat, given that there were only 2 people working on all those games. Now, a few of their games made it to Steam's platform after being launched by the Steam Greenlight program. This program, which ended in 2017, relied on users to suggest and vote on games that they wanted to see on the online store. However, despite being nominated and voted to appear on Steam, all of Digital Homicide Studios games received mostly negative reviews, with a few positive reviews only existing since the games included Steam trading cards, which are virtual cards that could be traded for other in-game items or sold for profit. And their reputation became so notorious that gaming commentator, now called Stephanie Sterling, went on to review their game, The Slaughtering Grounds, in November of 2014.
Another day, another terrible game on Steam. The Slaughtering Grounds has it all. Its levels consist of large open maps littered with unaltered objects, enemies and architecture purchased from a storefront rather than created by the developers. And rather than beat a level, you have to sit in a map and wait for 15 minutes to pass until a new level loads, because the dev couldn't code exits or map an actual, level.
In the video, Stephanie accused the developers of constantly reusing or copying things from old games to churn out low-effort video games instead of creating original ones. Their review on The Slaughtering Grounds also gained popularity and in turn made more players check and review bomb Digital Homicide Studios games. And this struck a nerve with the brothers, so they posted a review on the reviewer video where they re-uploaded Stephanie's review but with an added text overlay where they insulted the gaming commentator.
Grounds and then added text annotations, slagging me off and calling me an idiot. He was saying, let me flap my stupid mouth for a bit because I need to read this for you and myself since I didn't actually try the game before I started recording the review.
And Stephanie wasn't going to let it slide, as days later, they clapped back at the brothers by reposting their video with even more negative commentary directed towards them and their games.
Hello everyone! It's Jim Sterling here, and I've upset a developer, I think. What I'm going to do now is run around aimlessly since I haven't made any attempt to actually figure out the game thus far. I will be sure to blame the developer and Steam for my failure in taking the time to evaluate the game before I review it. Why do you say? Because I'm Jim Sterling's son.
Now, after posting their review on the reviewer, the brothers also filed for a DMCA takedown on Stephanie's video, claiming that Stephanie's post was an unfair review and an unfair and unreasonable use of our copyright material. Now, this did actually get Stephanie's video taken down from YouTube, though it would later be restored after they also filed a petition against the brothers' claims. Now, in an attempt to end this drama, Stephanie and Robert went on a Skype call to settle the dispute between them, but it just ended up adding more fuel to the fire.
Does your audience, outside of my audience, exist?
Oh yeah, totally. There is people that enjoy our games. You might be surprised at the amount of games that we have sold. You'd be surprised that there's actually people that defend against the people that come and attack and spout off your nonsense. Let's talk specifically about your nonsense.
Now, after that conversation failed, Stephanie continued creating review videos about Digital Homicide Studio games, while Robert's brother, James, filed another lawsuit against them, accusing them of slander and even assault. James even set up a GoFundMe page asking for donations to support the defamation lawsuit against Stephanie, though the page only received $450, a huge difference from their goal of $75,000. Now, in the end, they had no funds to pursue the case, and the lawsuit was close to being dismissed after Stephanie's lawyer defended their actions as protected commentary and opinion. However, James decided to not give up and took things a bit too far. James went on to sue a Steam group known as Digital Homicides, who were suspicious of how many games the brothers made as a duo and how they got their games launched despite being so low quality. The group had 100 anonymous Steam members, whom James accused of stalking, harassment, criminal impersonation, tortious interference, and so on. This was due to the group claiming that the brothers were pretending to be different developers and offering Steam keys to buy votes from Steam users. And all of this was to get their games launched through Greenlight despite the poor quality. Now, James' lawsuit was in response to these claims, with the developers ordering pressuring Valve to reveal the identities of the members of the group. But unfortunately for them, Steam responded by removing Digital Homicide Studios games completely, with a spokesperson saying that
Valve has stopped doing business with Digital Homicide for being hostile to Steam customers.
And with Steam no longer selling their games, Digital Homicide Studios officially closed a month later, having destroyed their own reputation and source of income. This also resulted in the lawsuit against the Steam group and Stephanie Sterling getting dropped, as the brothers could no longer actually afford to pursue them. Now, from developers openly attacking their players, this next developer created something in secret in their game that shocked everyone.
The game has been pulled from Steam, evidently permanently, for explicit content.
Now, Steam's Greenlight program allowed a lot of games to be published on the platform. However, just like Digital Homicide Studios games, many that were greenlit ended up being too controversial. One of them was Yo-Ho Simulator, a sandbox game where gamers could play as a physics-defying grade school anime character. Its trailer, which was posted on October 18th, 2015, promised a wacky fun game, similar to popular titles like Goat Simulator. Developed by Japanese indie developer Dead Factory and Sekai Project, Yo-Ho Simulator got its greenlit from Steam and was launched on the platform on November 17th, 2015. But despite being voted in by the fans, Yo-Ho Simulator ended up receiving mixed reviews, with gamers underwhelmed with the overall game, saying,
"We're paying $3.50 for a barren map now, boys. There's nothing to this game. It's just an unreal map that you can climb some stuff and hit some objects. It's a small map. This feels like playing a student project or something.
And
you can literally do nothing in this game except for running, jumping, and headbutting things. 20 seconds later, you've explored the entire map."
Stephanie Sterling, who I mentioned earlier, also included this game during their Let's Play video on November 18th, 2015.
This is one of those games that had the nucleus of a headline grabbing idea and then did nothing with it. Nothing has been done with this. It's just another haha look at me simulator game.
So nobody was really disappointed when Steam pulled the game from its platform on November 20th, just 3 days after its launch. However, this decision wasn't because of the bad reviews, since there's plenty of games that are still on Steam that have more negative reviews than that. Instead, Yo-Ho Simulator made its end because of something much more disturbing. YouTuber Matt Shea posted his gameplay of Yo-Ho Simulator on November 19th, 2015, just days before this game was removed from Steam. And what he discovered during this gameplay had a hand on this game's ultimate end. After reaching what looked like a secret area in the game, Matt found two NPCs. One was a man that was merely standing there, and another one was the only female character you'd find in the game, other than their main character. Now, what made the scene quite troubling was the fact that the other female was unconscious, with a piece of underwear discarded next to her.
Look, I found something. What is that? What the hell is going on over there? I gotta investigate that, okay? Because I'm pretty sure that guy is standing over something. What the f is this? Why would you put some sort of in this game standing up looking at a girl in a swimsuit? That is the creepiest thing I have ever seen in a video game, and it honestly makes me kind of uncomfortable.
The scenario painted a disturbing situation within a supposed simple anime schoolgirl character simulator, and after gamers took notice of the scene, Steam was bombarded with reports to get Yo-Ho Simulator removed from the platform, and so they did. Now, the game's publisher, Sekai Project, who ironically released beloved visual novels, soon told Hardcore Gamer that,
"We apologize for not having discovered this content before the game was released. Had we known, it would have been swiftly removed from the game. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and we're truly sorry for the severe oversight on our part. This has served as a valuable lesson and will have a significant but positive impact on how we test upcoming titles before they are released."
Meanwhile, the developer, Dead Factory, never addressed the issue, despite being the one who placed the controversial scene in the game. In a tweet posted on November 25th, they only said,
"Yo-Ho Simulator will be revived on Steam in the near future, though I can't guarantee the exact timing just yet."
And indeed, the strange simulator game was returned to Steam in February 2016, after the suspicious scene was removed. Although the publisher promised plenty of game updates afterwards, it seems that Yo-Ho Simulator had been abandoned by its developer, who moved on to new projects instead. But this next game should have never been launched on Steam in the first place, as it allowed one of the worst crimes that can be done through a video game.
No! No!
In December of 2024, the Latvian streamer Raivo Plavnieks, who goes by the streamer name Rastalan TV, was mourning his recently deceased dog when he felt a painful lump in his back. But he dismissed this as maybe just a result of bad posture. But soon, the worst news came.
Doctors, scans, more doctors. By New Year's, I was barely standing without screaming in pain. Turns out I've got stage 4 high-grade sarcoma, the kind that's growing faster than a coin pump. The prognosis, chemo ASAP, and maybe surgery if I'm lucky.
He had cancer, and this news devastated Raivo and his family, but he wasn't about to give up just yet.
Sadly, I hit the jackpot of honeypots. Found out that I sadly got so lucky that I have one of the rarest types of sarcoma cancers possible. It's killing me faster because I'm still young, and in my country, Latvia, I'm the second patient over 5 years that has something like this. They have so little research available about sarcomas that they would be basically guessing which chemicals could help. My doctors explained that the best thing I can do is get into a plane ASAP, because in Spain they're so further developed in medicine and experience with sarcomas that they should have a treatment plan ready in days. So that's what I'm doing.
And while receiving treatments in Spain, Rival returned to live streaming to entertain people while playing video games and receiving donations from his fans. He also launched his first cryptocurrency token, Survivor, on August 6, 2025, before launching another token on September 19th called Help Me Beat Cancer, or Cancer on Pump.fun, a cryptocurrency trading platform. And by September 21st, he'd already earned nearly $32,000 on Pump.fun, which would have gone a long way for his treatments. But unfortunately, all that money would disappear instead. During a live stream, one of his viewers recommended that he play an indie platforming game called Block Blaster. The game was on Steam with positive reviews, so Rival had no reason not to download it and play it for his viewers, but that would prove to be a mistake. Not long after downloading Block Blasters, Rival saw his creator fees on Pump.fun getting drained, and within a matter of seconds, the entire $32,000 completely vanished.
Oh no! No!
And this all happened during his live streaming, so Rival's horrified reaction to his life-saving money getting stolen was shown to his audience in real time. Of course, it was no coincidence that this happened right after he downloaded Block Blasters, and with Rival's reaction going viral, internet investigator ZagXBT dove deep into the story and discovered that the game, which had been available on Steam for over a month, had already stolen over $150,000 from players. An online malware export group known only as VX Underground also reported that Block Blasters contained malware that specifically targeted cryptocurrency wallet data and private passkeys. But what made the whole situation even more unsettling was that Rival wasn't even the first victim, since VX Underground found 405 people who previously had their wallets drained as well. Now, how did Steam allow this game into their platform? Well, it turns out that Block Blasters was first released on Steam on July 30th, 2025, and at this point the game was actually just that, a video game. However, after garnering positive reviews for a month, the developer of the game, Genesis Interactive, pushed for a patch that introduced malware into their files. And for nearly a month, the game was able to steal funds from players, and it would take Rival's money being drained live on stream for people to realize that Block Blasters was the culprit all along. As expected, the internet blamed Steam for allowing this to happen. Carsten Hahn, a malware researcher at G-Data Cyber Defense, revealed that they actually reported this game to Steam's company, Valve, a week before Rival downloaded the game. And just hours after Rival's livestream, VX Underground released their investigation on the matter, and even claimed that they got in contact with the group behind the Block Blaster malware. In their forensic report, VX Underground included screenshots of their chat with the suspected thieves, asking them to at least return Rival's money, and their response was,
"I will send it back, but he literally will make it back in a few hours. I checked how much he already made back."
And the second suspect added,
"He already made it back, to be honest."
And in the end, none of the stolen funds were returned, despite the suspects claiming that they would send it back. But fortunately, the internet did come together in support of Rival. After his livestream went viral, crypto influencer Alex Becker donated $32,500 to cover the money he lost. Anatoly Jahovenko, the co-founder of blockchain platform Solana, also bought $140,000 worth of Cancer token, skyrocketing its value to 3,000%. And so on September 22nd, Rival thanked his community for backing him up after this incident, and even began donating to charity to help others battling cancer. And within the same day, Block Blasters was finally removed from Steam. Rival and VX Underground also filed police reports on the incident, with the group even announcing to their followers on X how they've tracked down Telegram accounts connected to the fake game's code. And using the list of contacts in their Telegram accounts, VX Underground found one of the suspected hackers joining other Telegram chat groups, where he discussed his hobbies, shared his Instagram account, and even shared photos of himself next to expensive cars. And the same account had even posted a job post looking for video game developers and for someone to help him with malware. And all of these clues led them to their first suspect, an Argentinian TikToker, Valentin Lopez. And since being identified, Valentin has deleted all of his social media accounts before releasing his video denying that he was the man behind Block Blasters.
Valentin, I'm an influencer. Just woke up with this horrible news. Probably you guys know what happened. Absolutely disgusting and making me sick to my stomach. Someone's using my image to relate me to this case, which is absolutely disgusting. So yeah, people calling me and stuff. That's why I'm making this video. Yeah.
But the video didn't actually convince anyone. But only time will tell if he and the other people behind Block Blasters will actually be caught by the police, as they have yet to announce their investigation on this. But unfortunately, on November 15, less than 2 months after the Block Blaster fiasco, Rival posted on X saying,
"My time might be over. Can't say how much I feel except I want to pee."
3 days later, he unfortunately died fighting the rare cancer that had completely derailed his life, leaving his family and supporters to continue his mission by using his cancer token to support other patients and organizations. Meanwhile, Steam has yet to make a statement about allowing blockbusters to steal from rival and other players. Ironically, Valve's most popular game was also under fire for draining the money of its players in a cruel way.
And a few other people, including Tom or Pro Syndicate, own CSGO Lotto.
Counter-Strike is one of the most popular games published by Valve. In fact, even to this day, Counter-Strike remains as one of the most played games on the Steam platform. So Valve continues to create new ways to make the games more interesting for its audience. And on August 14th, 2013, Valve announced the Arms Deal update, where players can
experience all the illicit thrills of black market weapons trafficking without any of the hanging around in darkened warehouses getting knifed to death.
Now, the whole black market weapons trafficking might have been a joke, but the Arms Deal update did begin a long line of shady and illegal activities within the community of Steam and Counter-Strike Global Offense, otherwise known as CSGO. With the Arms Deal update, players could collect rare in-game weapons by
playing CSGO on official and community servers, or by opening dropped weapon cases with the appropriate key, or by trading with other players through Steam's trading interface.
And the last two options would become one of Valve's biggest money makers as well as their most controversial move ever. See, to open the dropped weapon cases, players would need to buy a key that's worth $2.50. However, players won't have any idea what the item inside the case will be until they actually open it, meaning that most of the time they'll get an item that's not even worth the $2.50 they paid for. Now, of course, many of the players would end up buying more keys in the hopes that all their investments will pay off once they actually get a rare item. And although this was all happening within the game, the gambling mechanic was glaring too many people, as YouTuber H3HD Productions put it.
And it feels like Valve itself has specifically designed this game to operate almost exactly like a slot machine.
The problem is that slot machines or any gambling medium is only legally allowed for players 21 years old and above. And though CSGO is rated for 17 and older, it's widely known that younger people play it too. To make matters even worse, gambling amongst CSGO players didn't stop inside the game. With the rise of esports, betting on pro gamers during large tournaments became the norm. And that was no different from sports betting. But with Counter-Strike tournaments, fans used weapon skins to place their bets. And with these skins being available to young gamers, so did gambling. Now, while people started questioning why Counter-Strike was advertising gambling to young gamers, Valve defended themselves by claiming that their digital items aren't money and cannot be used for actual gambling. However, given that weapons crates still require money to be opened, this argument didn't really make sense. Not to mention that Valve themselves advertised that players can sell and trade items through the Steam marketplace, where the most expensive skin would later be sold for over $1.5 million US. And despite this, Valve continued to ignore the difference between gambling and gaming, and so others also began taking advantage of this loophole. Around November 2015, Counter-Strike YouTubers TMRTN and Pro Syndicate began posting videos of themselves gambling on a website called CSGO Lotto, where they would place whatever weapon skins they own into a pot for a chance of winning a higher valued one. The problem was that TMRTN and Syndicate actually owned CSGO Lotto, and the videos where they won high-valued skins were pointless, considering they owned the website and could rig the game in their favor. But that didn't stop them from encouraging their impressionable audience to think that they'd have the same luck and start gambling themselves. Now, this of course violated the Federal Trade Commission law of deceptive endorsements, since they advertised the website without explicitly saying that they owned it, while also
misrepresenting the experience described by endorsers as the ordinary experience of users,
giving that their winnings were actually rigged. And once the story broke out, TMRTN posted a video in an attempt to make it seem like they never actually hit anything.
So basically what's breaking news now is that myself and a few other people, including Tom or Pro Syndicate, own CSGO Lotto. And this is something that has never been a secret. I don't understand why it's this big breaking news now, because it's never been like under wraps. It's never been a secret.
But this was difficult to believe, given that he first introduced CSGO Lotto as a new site he found, even saying that,
and they hit me up and they're talking to me about potentially doing like a skin sponsorship, like they'll give me skins to be able to bet on the site and stuff.
People were also quick to point out how he claimed to
get a sponsorship from his own website so he can get more of people's money.
And so the two YouTubers were charged by the FTC in September 2017, but only for this lawsuit to be dropped in a settlement 2 months later. TMRTN and Pro Syndicate didn't even pay a fine, and instead were only required to disclose that they were the owners of CSGO Lotto in any future content. Meanwhile, after people took notice of CSGO's gambling problem, Valve received several lawsuits, including a class action lawsuit filed by parents from Florida and Washington for exposing their children to illegal gambling. However, Valve won this case through a technicality, since the parents
never used Steam, and therefore even if Valve had posted warnings or information about the nature of the loot boxes, the parents never would have seen it.
Still, in an attempt to appear like they were protecting younger players, Valve sent cease and desist letters to multiple Counter-Strike gambling sites, including CSGO Lotto, but similar sites remain to this day. This could have actually prevented another lawsuit in 2023, this time in the Austrian court. An unnamed Counter-Strike player sued Valve for illegal gambling and demanded the company to reimburse him for the money he lost. And according to the Austrian government, CSGO's weapons cases were were a form of loot boxes, which were viewed as gambling. And since Valve didn't have a gambling license in Austria, Counter-Strike's weapons cases were seen as illegal gambling. And with all these in mind, Valve lost their case and were ordered to refund the Austrian gamer 14,000 euros, which amounts to over $15,000. But aside from that one Austrian player, other young players of CSGO were still at risk of falling into the trap of online gambling, potentially losing thousands of dollars on an addictive habit that could also destroy their adult life.
For Counter-Strike in particular, I'm curious, do you feel like gambling has had a positive impact on the game at all? As you feel like it's grown interest in the game over the past few years that it's been available?
Yeah, so I mean, well, what's the question?
Has gambling led to greater interest in Counter-Strike?
Has it?
Yes.
We don't know. We don't have any data to support that.
Another crime was infecting the Steam and Counter-Strike community at a global scale.
One of the more common methods of laundering money is called carding.
With the changes in technology, criminals looking to clean their dirty money had to adapt new ways to do so. And the Steam Marketplace became one of the most promising money laundering platforms ever. I've already talked about how players are willing to spend thousands and even millions of dollars on video games and in-game items. With the size of the digital market and its worldwide reach, plus sellers and traders not having to confirm their identities before making transactions, the Steam Marketplace had gradually transformed into the perfect platform to launder money. The tactic was simple. Funds taken through unlawful means such as credit card fraud and hacked payment accounts are converted into the Steam platform's currency. They can be used to purchase virtual items, such as Counter-Strike weapon skins, which they can then trade through either the Steam Marketplace or a third-party site, ending with the money being returned to them in a somewhat legal way. And this was covered in a research article published on Science Direct in July of 2024. And here, the researchers summarized that
the unregulated nature of video game secondary marketplaces provides a ground for possible money laundering without the need to consider the restrictions that financial regulation on the banking sector has to check for and combat money laundering.
According to Valve, container keys, the keys that unlock CSGO loot boxes, became the target, since their value was pretty stable, while the demand was extremely high. And so to fix this issue, Valve disabled trading of container keys, so the person buying these keys is the only one who can actually use it. This aimed to reduce the chance of money laundering through the Counter-Strike marketplace. But the keys and skins weren't the only ways criminals actually laundered money through Steam. In the years after this update, some gamers and gaming journalists noticed that certain video games on Steam looked so basic yet were being sold at an extremely high cost. An example was Fast Race Game, whose title itself was as generic as you can get. On July 14, 2021, investigative YouTube channel Upper Echelon mentioned this game in their documentary about money laundering within Steam. Their video showed how the game had no marketing and practically no presence online, except for its Steam store page, and this tweet that showed its half-baked gameplay that didn't justify the price point of $700.
Absolutely no content whatsoever, and its price was $700.
Another suspiciously priced game that the documentary mentioned was Jump Fly, which was selling at $80 and even ranked number 5 best-selling games on Steam for a brief moment in January of 2020. And there were plenty of suspiciously priced and poor quality games like this, making gamers think that they were most likely used for money laundering. The theory was that criminals developed and launched low-effort games through Steam and then hiked up the prices once they were ready to make their transactions. And using the illegally acquired funds, these so-called developers would buy the game from themselves, thus getting the 70% cut through a legal mean, while Valve took 30% like we talked about earlier in the video. What's worse is that Valve has already made measures to prevent these types of transactions, but they just still keep happening. Since 2017, Valve has required developers to submit IDs alongside tags and bank documents to ensure that people launching games on Steam are actually real people. And yet, criminals are still able to create fake games to launder money due to one weak point. See, the problem is that even if Valve identifies that a developer is a fraud or is using their platform to launder money, taking any legal action is pretty challenging, since there's very few regulations and laws that authorities can use against these criminals. And so the most Valve can do is ban the user's game and account, but that doesn't actually stop them from making new ones, maybe even using stolen identities. But this next story takes us back to Steam's gambling problem and how it led to a cult launching real-life attacks. The Professional Gamer League, or PGL, holds global tournaments for esports where professional players compete in games like Dota 2 and Counter-Strike 2, formerly known as CSGO. Millions of dollars are often at stake, so naturally it became one of the most awaited events in gaming each year. On March 29, 2024, PGL Major Copenhagen hosted the championship tournament for Counter-Strike 2. The quarterfinals was supposed to see a match between esports teams G2 and Moose, but something terrifying would end up interrupting the whole event. While the audience was fully invested in the match between the two teams, a few people suddenly ran up the stage. Security was quick to chase and tackle them while the esports team continued their own virtual tournament.
Critical territory now.
But despite the numerous security officers already handling the situation, more charged at the stage, with one man shouting at the center, needing 7 officers to finally take him down. The PGL trophy, however, was broken after its podium was knocked over during the scuffle, and so in the end, the whole event delayed the match. As the people were taken off stage, everyone began to wonder,
what was this all about?
And the answer to that was no secret, since the person behind it all previously announced his plans on the live streaming platform Kick.
If G2 is gonna be playing on the stage, I was planning, if somebody's going to Germany, or if you have any friends in Germany, I can pay you a good amount of money. Just come to my DMs, and I can pay you a good amount of money if you run on the stage in the middle of the game and glue yourself on the stage. Or even better, if you put like handcuffs. If you can handcuff yourself on one of the computers or one of the tables, I will pay you decent money.
This is Ossi Ketola, better known as Monarch. He's the owner of CSGO Empire, an online gambling website where players primarily wagered Counter-Strike weapon skins instead of money. Now, before CSGO Empire, Monarch co-founded Big Boy Bets, a betting website for the online game RuneScape. He created this site with his friend Killiam M back in August of 2013. However, this partnership wouldn't last.
When he realized how much potential the website has, he told me that I must sell him my 30%, and then he said, "You don't own the most of the business. I am the majority shareholder, you don't have any right whatsoever."
As Monarch explained in a video he posted in 2014.
And he told me that he could pay about 20,000, which is just a joke, because I could easily sell that for more than 50,000 to other people. And as you might guess, did I even get the 20,000? Nope, I got nothing. He scammed me for my equity.
Killian responded to this video arguing that
I made it perfectly clear to him that I'd rather him leave, so I can work on Big Boy Bets by myself. He encouraged me to give him an offer for 30% equity. He even tried to buy my 70% equity. I didn't offer him 20,000. I told him I'd get back to him with an accurate business valuation, because I've never sold a business before. His claim to be able to sell 30% for more than 50,000 is beyond to me. I don't know anyone who would do that, and neither does he.
He also posted screenshots of the conversation, where Killian, under the username iZinc, asked for time to confirm how much he could offer to buy the shares, owned by Monarch, who used the name Jupi. The last message that Killian sent to Monarch was,
"Waiting on more info on how to get an accurate valuation, and I'm waiting on a phone call back from a lawyer who will write up the contracts for us."
And Monarch replied with,
"Okay."
But instead of waiting for Killian, Monarch allegedly
left on his own accord on the Friday, whilst I was sleeping, and uploaded this video all behind my back, when I was under the assumption that he was selling his 30% equity after we get the debts organized, as to how much money he owes me, and get a legal contract written up.
And while we don't know which side of the story is actually the truth, one thing was certain. The end of their business partnership led to a years-long feud that had a lot of consequences. After Monarch founded CSGO Empire, Killian would create a rival online casino called CSGO Roll, and this gave Monarch a target to focus his anger on. Monarch went on to declare an online war through social media and CSGO Empire's website, targeting Killian's CSGO Roll alongside other Counter-Strike gambling sites like CSGO Wild, which he believed were all run by scammers. Like Empire, the other CSGO online gambling sites use weapon skins taken from the Counter-Strike 2 marketplace. These skins serve as tokens, or are converted into tokens depending on their value, which players will use to play games like in a casino. The games they play are similar to luck-based games in real-life casinos, where they bet on which color the ball lands on. And much like casinos, players aim to earn more tokens from these games, which they can withdraw outside the platform as high-valued weapon skins or cryptocurrency. However, CSGO Roll was called out in Monarch's November 2023 post, saying that Roll was doing a Ponzi scheme. According to Monarch, the daily rewards that CSGO Roll uses to urge players to keep playing weren't sustainable. Depending on how much a gamer has played and won on the site, Roll players are promised these daily rewards in the form of free weapon skins, even if they stopped gambling. This meant that Roll was essentially giving out skins that could cost hundreds of dollars to users who could stop putting their money into this gambling website. Monarch believed that with more players receiving free skins without having to gamble, Roll would need to keep luring in new players to actually make up for the money they lost. Otherwise, this daily reward system would suddenly have to stop and leave all the players with less than what they invested in to get those free skins. Monarch's right-hand man, Warrant, also posted on Twitter back in 2023, saying that CSGO Roll's withdrawal process would trick players into gambling even more, saying,
"They keep the users' funds locked into the platform, which often leads to them gambling more than they originally intended to. Someone who wants to withdraw $100,000 from the platform right away won't be able to due to heavy restrictions, and they would likely end up gambling further."
Warren believed that the players waiting to withdraw their winnings would end up staying on the website longer. Now, these were only some of the claims that Monarch had been using to insist that CSGO Empire was the only legit Counter-Strike online casino.
They have made millions and millions of euros from illegal casinos. And what I am going to do is I'm going to be delivering justice to these mother. Tax investigations are coming. People are gonna be going to jail.
Now, his online war captured the attention of many who either agreed with Monarch's views or were victims of other casinos, which ultimately led to the creation of what he called his cult, known as Monarch's Castle. And with his fans following every word of his, Monarch was able to take his war outside the internet.
Fun games. What is coming for you is something different. There will be people going to prison. There will be severe consequences. There will be interesting stuff coming.
This was the feud that led to Monarch ordering his followers to protest during PGL 2024. He targeted this event because one of the competing esports teams, G2, was actively advertising CSGO Roll, and he even livestreamed the PGL protest.
Guys, anybody who's in the audience and watching this is your opportunity to make thousands.
Monarch also had a countdown timer during the livestream, calling it G2 9/11, referencing the horrible attack that shocked the world in 2001. In addition to that, he also claimed that one of his hired protesters was a murderer recently released from prison. And these details left many of his audience alarmed by what he was planning. But thankfully, at the end of the day, no one was reported to having been seriously injured during the protest. His Kick account would instead be blocked during this livestream, but Monarch celebrated the success of his protest anyway, posting on X,
"We did it, boys."
But in response to this, PGL declared that
individuals involved were removed by the police. We will be pressing charges against the disruptors.
Now, so far, no reports of anyone being charged for this protest has been confirmed. However, his attack on the tournament convinced people in the professional gaming community to cut ties with CSGO Empire completely. In particular, the online casino was supposed to hold their own tournament called CSGO Empire Cup between April 3rd to 19th, 2024, just days after the actual PGL major tournament. However, because of Monarch's attack, participants and organizers backed out of this company event, with Sinners, another esports team, calling Empire scumbags. And with the rising controversy, Empire posted an apology on X days after the PGL protest, saying,
"We stand by our message. Scamming is never okay. And an esports organization like G2 should not partner with scammers since they use users' funds. However, we recognize that Valve and the Counter-Strike community is independent from these sites. We intend to send a message, but it was a mistake on our part to punish the wrong people, and things blew out of proportion."
And Monarch was true to his word, since he stopped creating protests during community events, and instead began targeting people involved with the CSGO Roll company directly. Even before the PGL protest, content creator Sebastian Ring-Gerloxen, also known as Grim, was already receiving threatening messages from Monarch back in 2023. The message would say,
"You're promoting a scam site and you know it. The more you pretend to be dumb, the deeper of a hole you're digging for yourself. We're going to be making some examples, and considering our context, you're on the upper part of the list."
This was due to Grim promoting CSGO Roll, but he would respond to these messages by saying,
"Come at me with full thrust."
But he would soon regret this response, because after Grim's post, he'd receive screenshots from people inside Monarch's Discord server showing what the CSGO Empire CEO was plotting against him. One screenshot implied that Monarch would send a servant to Grim's house, then set himself on fire. Another X account, which was allegedly also used by Monarch, even posted a strange job listing in September of 2023. Some of the details included,
"We need excellent trolls all across the board. We need people who can find the most creative angles to mess up someone's life without breaking the law. Grim, as an example, we need detectives following him around."
And after gathering people willing to do his bidding, and Grim already being doxxed by his cult in August of 2023, Monarch set his plans into motion. In February of 2024, Warrant posted on X that he had stalked Grim in his town. Then, in September of that year, Grim woke up to his friends and family calling and texting him in panic. This was because around 30,000 flyers were being distributed in his hometown in Norway, warning people that he was scamming young gamers. This, however, was nothing compared to what Grim found outside his house in late of 2024. On that day, Grim heard a disturbance outside his house, so he checked the security camera at his front door and realized that his life was in real danger. 18 of Monarch's followers gathered outside of his house with pitchforks in hand. They protested right on his steps, chanting and yelling accusations against him and CSGO Roll, and the only thing between Grim and Monarch's angry cult was his front door.
I'm a Calden because CSGO Roll's got my house. Grim, I'm coming for you. Killian, I'm coming for you. Give him house back! Give him house back! Give him house back!
He would then receive this message saying that Monarch would
stop the house attacks if you drop CSGO Roll and take a match deal with Empire.
And despite Monarch and his followers already trapping him in his own house, there's no news of Grim taking this deal so far. Instead, he went to the police to report what happened, but no arrests or investigations were ever made. But at least CSGO Roll hired security agents to watch Grim's house 24/7, as he'd begun to fear for his life after Monarch sent his followers directly to him. Meanwhile, in another attempt to get Zillion's website taken down, Warren actually reached out to YouTube investigative journalist CoffeeZilla back in March of 2024 to take a look at CSGO Roll, and in response, CoffeeZilla investigated both Killian and Monarch without taking Warren's bribe of $20,000. In his video, which he posted in December of the same year, CoffeeZilla exposed Monarch's harassment of content creators, which had resulted in Counter-Strike streamers being too scared to talk about it.
Can't talk about the monitors. Why?
Bro, the weather was like really nice today outside.
Dude, come on! Tell me what's going on!
I can't.
Everybody talks behind the scenes.
And the only one still willing to talk against Monarch to CoffeeZilla was Grim himself.
Oh, it was definitely intimidation as well as harassing, because like obviously when they show up at my house, they make it incredibly difficult for me to be here.
But the surprising thing was, Monarch was also ready to talk about his actions to CoffeeZilla, showing how proud he was of his accomplishments.
Yeah, so we did this funny protest one day. We sent the cute little cult. There was maybe like 15 people outside of his house.
He also talked openly about his war on other CSGO casinos.
It's very important to note actually that Killian is not the only target. Like we are having war with other sites as well. And I have a track record. Like before this CSGO drama, I've been doing this thing for many years actually.
According to Monarch's side of the story, CSGO Empire was the only Counter-Strike casino that was making an effort to abide by the law, including restricting access to countries that ban gambling and implementing a KYC, or Know Your Customer system, to prevent younger people from using their site. Even CoffeeZilla admitted that after investigating other CSGO casinos. Empire was the only one implementing rules to keep their casinos running while technically following the law, and it seems that Monarch's actions eventually made changes.
The irony here being, the biggest voice of change so far really has been Monarch.
Though these changes may also affect his business. As a response to the PGL tournament protest, Valve implemented a visibility change to CS2 skins, the items used for the CS online gambling. In a patch note posted just 3 days after the protest, Valve declared that
purchase and traded Counter-Strike items will not be visible to other users who view your Steam inventory for 10 days.
This limits the online casino's access to their players' inventories, forcing them to either trust that the players have the items that they're betting with or hijack their Steam sessions to check. But Valve didn't stop there. In October of 2025, they also began allowing players to trade a number of normal skins to get one higher item. Now this might not sound too much, until we realized that allowing an easier access to rare items completely devalued them. Items that could have been sold for thousands were now easier to get, so of course people won't be willing to pay thousands of dollars for them. And since online casinos keep these rare skins to sell or trade with their customers, their inventories suddenly decreased in value as well. Now this could finally be the end of Steam and Counter-Strike's gambling problem, but since the update was fairly recent, we've yet to see its full outcome. Unfortunately, illegal gambling wasn't the only crime that was promoted within a Steam game. This next game wasn't shy about using another disturbing act that in the real world destroyed millions of lives.
What is your initial reaction to this?
We are totally disgusted.
After Steam Greenlight exposed numerous flaws in how the platform chooses games to release, Valve launched Steam Direct, which placed the responsibility of vetting video games on the company's experts instead of the public. And considering this new development, it's confusing how this next game managed to get past their quality check. The game title itself suggested a very disturbing gameplay, and since I don't want to get demonetized, I'll just call it The Fruit Grape Day. Grape Day was advertised as a visual novel set in a zombie apocalypse, and players would play as the main character, a survivor in this apocalyptic world. But instead of fighting zombies and strategizing how to create a new society, the game's goal was to commit certain crimes. The main character turned out to be a serial killer who made unwanted contact with women, and despite the world being infested with zombies, he wanted to continue this crime and target female survivors. And a game that centered on a very disturbing activity was only able to pass Steam's checks because of a change that Valve announced just a year ago. The announcement was that Valve would be allowing everything on Steam, arguing that
if you're a player, we shouldn't be choosing for you what content you can or can't buy. If you're a developer, we shouldn't be choosing what content you're allowed to create. Those choices should be yours to make. With the principle in mind, we decided to allow everything onto the Steam store, except for things we decide are illegal or straight up trolling.
This means that games that have adult content, like this one, could also be launched on a platform. And so in February 2019, the game's store page was made available on Steam, with a release date announced for March. In the description, the developer, known only as Deskplant, even encouraged players to
verbally harass, kill, and do intimate attacks as you choose to progress the story. Enjoy a day, you deserve it.
Now, apart from the horrible actions towards the female characters, the game was supposed to also show one scene where the main character would take a smaller human out of existence, though it's unclear whether the smaller human was a zombie or not. Now, some players apparently didn't like this part, and so in a Steam update on February 23rd, Deskplant showed his willingness to remove the scene if it really made people uncomfortable, saying,
I now realize my game highly offends some people, so if it doesn't get approved for that reason, I'll make it available only from my website, and then still kick off the normal marketing plan that I had for the game.
And days later, he made good on his promise, and decided to remove the scene since,
while it doesn't actually qualify as ill treatment of a small person, the vagueness in this term is enough for a banning campaign to be waged against my game for just this scene alone. I do apologize to anyone who wanted to see the scene. I'll do my best not to water this game down too much.
And so when it came to the disturbing mechanics of the game, Deskplant wasn't willing to back down. Now on March 4th, 2019, Deskplant admitted that the game was undergoing more scrutiny because of its controversial gameplay. In a post, he announced that the launch date was eventually pushed to April, explaining,
the game is complete. It is currently under review by Steam before release. I learned that because the game contains content that may be illegal in some countries, the review process will take much longer than expected. Unfortunately, I was not able to get a more specific time estimate for you guys.
And with the game's launch getting close, people against it decided to take matters into their own hands. A change.org petition was set up by a concerned gamer named Cecilia Caldwell on March 5th, the day after the delayed launch date was announced. In her petition, Cecilia wrote,
"We need to let reviewers know that a game centered on unwanted contact and killing women is unacceptable and cannot hit the market."
She demanded that Steam take the game off their platform, and soon enough, over 7,000 people signed her petition. And this made even more people aware of the questionable game, and so soon enough, even powerful people got involved in the fight.
The stats of gender-based violence are so bad. So we really want to make a difference.
British Parliament member Hannah Bardwell and Scottish Parliament member Shona Robinson urged the UK government to review how a game like this was even considered for public distribution. Hannah declared that
it's time for the UK government to undertake a full review into how tech companies and gaming platforms are able to get away with this kind of stupidity. The culture to seek forgiveness rather than permission is a stain on an industry that otherwise has the potential to be a real force for good.
The 1,000 Women Trust, an organization aiming to end gender-based violence in South Africa, also filed a petition to ban the game from being released in their country.
Somebody actually sat and thought that this is a good idea. What is your initial reaction to this?
We are totally disgusted. And as you mentioned, that's why we decided together with the 1,000 Women's Trust.
But while thousands of people were fighting back against this game from being released, there were also those who supported the developer, with one saying,
"It's a fantasy, and even lived out by clubs all over the world. It's nothing too special really, not to be confused with the real thing, though some seem to be unable to distinguish."
However, the pressure on Valve eventually became too much. So on March 7, 2019, they announced that they won't continue the game's launch, saying,
"After significant fact-finding and discussion, we think the game possesses unknown costs and risks and therefore won't be on Steam. We respect developers' desire to express themselves, and the purpose of Steam is to help developers find an audience. But this developer has chosen content matter and a way of representing it that makes it very difficult for us to help them do that."
Meanwhile, Deskplan posted this statement on his website the same day his game got banned.
"I've not broken any rules, so I don't see how my game could get banned unless Steam changes their policies. My game was properly marked as adult, and with a thorough description of all the potentially offensive content. However, if Steam does change their policy, and it is absolutely their right to do so, as a private company, I will do what I can to try and create or find an alternative way of selling and marketing my games."
In the weeks following his banning on Steam, Deskplan attempted to launch the game on his website, only for online payment services to ban him from using them to sell his controversial game. He complained that,
"We live in a time when guides such as the Communist Manifesto that led to the deaths of millions are freely sold, while a fictional story that offends a vocal minority is censored and banned."
So instead, Deskplan decided to post a link for the game to be downloaded for free. Cecilia, who first posted the petition against this game, quickly noticed this and used change.org again to stop him. And so on March 27th, she posted a new petition to have the game banned from Squarespace, the website platform that ran Deskplan's website. And again, it actually worked. Before the end of March, Deskplan's website was taken down, along with the links he offered to let players download the game for free. Meanwhile, this next game did get launched on Steam, only for the developer to post a shocking threat.
"I am going to kill Gabe Newell. He is going to die."
Paranautical Activity was created by indie studio Code Avarice, who submitted it to Steam's Greenlight program in August 2012 and became available to Steam via early access a year later. Early access means that the game was available to Steam players even when it wasn't complete. This allowed developers to receive funds for the game while also getting constructive feedback from their players. And many players were happy to have this influence over games they follow, but others kicked against the idea, saying that they weren't interested in buying an incomplete game. However, by October 2014, Code Avarice decided to move it out of early access and make Paranautical Activity a full-fledged game. The problem was Steam mislabeled them. Even after the developers completed it, Steam's front store page still declared it as early access. And Code Avarice's Mike Molbeck felt that this could impact the game's sales during its chances on being on the platform's front page. So he took his anger out on Twitter, saying,
"Are you kidding me, Steam? We just released out of early access, and this is our front page banner?"
And he would continue ranting throughout the day, even accusing Steam of forcing them to delay their launch due to their rule not to launch on weekends. He also called Steam
incompetent.
Then he ended his rant by saying something no one expected.
"I'm going to kill Gabe Newell. He's going to die."
This of course shocked many, as they feared that such a simple mistake from Steam could lead to a violent retaliation. And Valve wasn't about to take a threat to their boss lightly. So not long after Mike's rant, Paranautical Activity was simply pulled from Steam altogether, with a representative confirming that,
"Yes, we've removed the game's sales page and ceased relations with the developer after he threatened to kill one of our employees."
However, this only fueled Mike's anger further, with him taking his frustration out on social media with ramblings like,
"PA no longer on Steam. I'm done making video games now. It sucked while it lasted. Don't worry guys, everything is going to be okay. We sold 12 copies on non-Steam platforms today. We were selling more than that a minute on Steam."
But thankfully, Mike would eventually decide to calm down before he did anything he would actually regret. He made an official statement over at Code Average's website on October 21st.
"Following some confusion about the state of the game, I became frustrated with Steam and ended up sarcastically saying I was going to kill Gabe Newell, a statement I obviously didn't mean, but was regardless completely unacceptable. As a result of my actions, Paranautical Activity was removed from Steam. I feel it is my responsibility to step down from Code Average completely, so that Steam has has no reason to harbor any more ill towards the company, and even if we can see paranautical activity restored. I'm sorry that my short-sighted, hot-tempered actions resulted in not only my own dreams and aspirations being destroyed, but also those of the entire team I worked with. I'm sorry that my statements made Valve and/or Gabe uncomfortable and upset.
However, just a few weeks later, Code Average announced Mike's return.
Looking for a new source of income was extremely overwhelming, and when it finally came time to put pen to paper, we agreed the best thing to do would be to have Mike return to Code Average.
Now, Paranautical Activity was then sold to a new developer, Digerati, who relaunched the game on Steam on February 12, 2015. And while Mike wasn't serious about his threats, this next Steam user got the gaming community involved in one of the most shocking assassination attempts that made global headlines. On July 13, 2024, during then former President Donald Trump's campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, 8 shots were fired, with one hitting Trump on his right ear, only 4 seconds after the first bullet was fired. The gunman was shot by an officer, and 12 seconds later, the sniper team positioned in the area found and killed him on the spot. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate he aimed for made a full recovery in the hospital. But how does this connect to the Steam community? Well, the gunman was 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, who allegedly threatened to bring weapons to school 5 years ago. He and his friends were also rumored to have posted about explosives on the school's website to scare their schoolmates, already suggesting an aggressive behavior even when Thomas was young. To understand what happened, what Thomas' motives were, and whether or not someone helped him organize the crime, the FBI launched an investigation on him. And this was when they discovered Thomas' Steam account. And what he posted there...
July 13th will be my premiere. Watch as it unfolds.
This was posted on a Steam account named Thomas M. Crooks, giving the idea that Thomas was hinting to the gaming community about what he was going to do. And this made former FBI behavioral analyst Jim Clement believe that Thomas wasn't motivated by political beliefs, but instead...
it was the supposed fame of doing something outrageous and infamous. He was trying to make himself look and feel better than how he viewed his life as insignificant.
And with this story coming to light, journalists and the public began speculating if Thomas's gaming activity might have convinced him to commit the crime. And ironically, among the games available on Steam, one was called Mr. President. On its store page, Mr. President was described as a game where users
play the best bodyguard money can buy, sworn to protect the most hated presidential candidate of all time, Ronald Trump.
This game was obviously referencing Donald Trump, and though there was no confirmation that Thomas played Mr. President or similar games, Steam players began flooding the game with comments like how this game
predicted the future,
and that it was
based on true events.
Another one even jokingly commented that
I keep having this weird glitch where the bullet grazes Trump's ear. Is that supposed to happen?
And this game blew up when Fox News covered the story with the headline saying
Trump shooter used gaming site that featured presidential assassination game.
And this only strengthened the idea that violent video games lead to real-life criminal activity, which TechDirt, a tech-focused news site, called out saying that
to Fox News it seems that the answer is always the same. Blame video games, social media, or anything else that fits your preconceived notions.
But this debate of whether video games affected Thomas's decision to commit the crime all came to a halt just one day after the theories began, because with just a little bit more investigation, it was revealed that the Steam account named Thomas M. Crooks and the alleged warning posts were made by someone else. This was proven since by checking the Steam account's history, it showed that the account was actually renamed the day after the shooting, when the gunman was already deceased. This next criminal, however, was not only a Steam user, but someone from inside Valve itself, and his motivation for his crime was as clear as day.
Today we are starting with a topic that is rather grim. One of the original co-creators of Counter-Strike, Jess Cliff, has been arrested for the exploitation of a...
Jess Cliff is one of the 2 creators of a popular mod for one of Valve's games, Half-Life. A mod is when part of a game is changed or modified, and Jess's team turned the Half-Life's gameplay from a single shooter to a team-based multiplayer. After gaining attention, this mod was turned into a standalone video game, which we now know as the largest first-person shooter game, Counter-Strike. Having developed Counter-Strike earned Jess a spot at Valve's helm, right after he graduated in 2003, and this would have practically set him up for success. But his career and life came crashing down when he was arrested on January 31st, 2018. News of his arrest quickly spread, and Valve suspended his employment, explaining that
we're still learning details about what actually happened. Reports suggest that he's been arrested for a felony offense. As such, we've suspended his employment until we know more.
The idea of a respected gaming developer committing a felony offense got people more curious about his arrest, and soon Jess' disturbing secrets were slowly unraveled. In 2017, Jess had used dating apps to meet women, and amongst the apps he used was Seeking Arrangements, a site promoting itself as a luxury dating platform that was also known for connecting people with those willing to pay for some intimacy. Now, between May 6 and June 6, 2017, Jess met a woman through the site 3 times. On these occasions, Jess paid $300 for every hour he spent with his date, who was only named as AC on official statements. For the sake of this video, I'll be calling her Amelia. This was an arrangement that both of them agreed on, so Jess began picking up Amelia and driving her to his home for their dates. When they arrived in his neighborhood, however, Jess instructed Amelia to leave the car, go around the park behind his home, then discreetly approach his front door and act like someone who just arrived to visit him. He explained that he wanted to avoid noisy neighbors, so he didn't want to be seen arriving with her. And given what they intended to do on these dates, Amelia didn't mind having to avoid being seen with Jess. However, on the third night in 2017, Jess did something Amelia didn't expect. He had bought a new iPhone 7 and claimed that he wanted to test his camera quality with Amelia. However, what he actually wanted to do was record how they often spent their nights. Amelia was really comfortable with this, so she said no, and the two simply continued with their evening. But Amelia suddenly noticed that Jess' phone was still recording everything, despite her not agreeing to this. And having heard stories of women being harmed by men during such encounters, Amelia couldn't bring herself to object again. She was also aware of how small she was in height compared to Jess, making it a challenge to fight back if she had to. And so she continued with the evening, despite being recorded against her wishes. Once she was prepared to leave, Amelia finally had the courage to at least ask Jess not to post the video online, which she agreed to. However, as he was driving her back to the city, Amelia also pointed out that their paid interactions were against the law in their state of Seattle, where buying intimacy is illegal, but Jess defended that he was technically paying for her time, not for what they did in bed. Now, thinking of what they did and how he'd recorded it, Amelia then wanted to say that this video was illegal in the entire country since she wasn't actually of age. And this is what made the contents that Jess had just recorded a felony crime for involving someone born more recently. But as he thought of this, Amelia realized that she wasn't sure if Jess knew her age, and it might anger him if she revealed it while she was trapped in his car. And so she ended that night without saying anything more. That was until June 8, 2017, when Amelia shared her story to the King County Sheriff's Office to open an investigation against Jess. In her interview, Amelia admitted that she created an account in seeking arrangements to earn money from seeing men. And despite this and the idea that she willingly met Jess knowing what they'd be doing, she felt that his recording without her agreement wasn't right. The recording and Jess paying for evenings was enough to investigate him, but adding that Amelia was from a more recent generation made the crime even more horrible, whether Jess knew about her age or not. And so, after months of collecting evidence and gathering the conversation history between Amelia and Jess, investigators confirmed their connection and arrested the game developer on January 31st, 2018. At the start, Jess was cooperative with the detectives, confirming that he'd used multiple websites to arrange dates with women, and that in some cases, those included arrangements that included payment for their time. But when shown Amelia's photo, Jess denied ever meeting with her. Even after the detectives showed him the messages he exchanged with the victim in 2017. Now, he eventually admitted that he knew Amelia, but he also asserted that he only paid for her time and not the intimacy. He also explained that he thought Amelia was 23, something that the detectives revealed to him wasn't true. And with him in custody, Jess' story broke as he awaited trial, and some of his fans defended him, saying,
"What if he just got baited and legit thought she was 18? She even said she didn't know if he knew. She's obviously not innocent. Seems like he should be charged with buying intimacy."
Another gamer pointed out that seeking arrangement was at fault for the situation, giving that
women on this website are 18. Why should he question it? This site should take a look at the passport/driver license to verify the women's age, so they're at fault too.
Despite these, Jess was charged with commercial physical attack on a smaller person on February 5th, 2018. By October 8th, 2018, Jess took an L4 plea deal, which meant that he accepted a reduced sentencing without admitting that he committed the crime. He only served 57 days in a maximum security facility, and almost right after his release in March 2019, he finally spoke about his alleged crime in a post on Reddit saying,
"I never recorded this person at all. This was a lie from the start. I even opened my cell phone for the police, giving them full access to prove this. I also took a state-mandated polygraph regarding this and passed. It's also worth noting that the woman also scammed multiple other men, so I'm guessing she mixed me up with one of them. She also lied about the number of times we met, which was debunked by the transcript in evidence. This was a very unfortunate situation, and I had no intention of meeting someone who was lying about her age. I still got catfished on a dating website for adults, where you have to say that you're over 18. You'll also recall that this person admitted to the police that she'd lied to me, and multiple other men apparently, about her true age. But I'm glad it's over now, and there was a basically sane resolution. So be very careful with people you meet over the internet, and also ask for an ID no matter what."